Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Chad McCanna.
And welcome to our Donkey Kong Land Spotlight episode.
Yay.
Well, that seems a little tepid. What's wrong with...
We're just recording this episode very, very late. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday, so energy levels are low. Not enthusiasm for Donkey Kong Land.
Well, we know how to party. I mean, some people would go out to the clubs, to the bars, social nightlife scene, have a few little drinky poos, and
that is what they're called. Yeah,
have a good time. But we know where the true party is.
Oh yeah, you got to grab a banana yellow cartridge, slap it in your Game Boy, stick it in your back pocket, and then start jamming.
You just got to grind. Just
grind, man. Yeah.
Pop off that shirt. Start grinding in the classroom with your fellow teenagers.
You're gonna work up a sweat. You're gonna get all glistening and sweaty. Your nubile, advertising friendly body.
Yeah.
This is the Donkey Kong Land commercial that we're describing. By the way,
we
should probably preface
not the Matrix Reloaded, because it could have been that scene where they're in the cave and they're getting all muddy and
perhaps the Wachowskis directed the Donkey Kong Land commercial in 1995, and that's really what kickstarted their careers.
Really, I think that was their best work. I think everything after that was downhill. People say, "Oh, after the first Matrix, they haven't produced anything noteworthy." Well, I beg to differ. The Matrix pales in comparison to the Donkey Kong Land commercial. The original Donkey Kong Land commercial. There are actually two of them.
Oh, wait, are there?
Yeah. There's the teenagers grinding up on each other's junk, and I think that was too risque, or somebody complained because they replaced it with
I think it was probably Tipper Gore that complained about that one.
That's right, because it wasn't until the Democratic Convention in 2000 that Al Gore grind up on her, if you'll remember.
Right. Oh, yeah. That was the big swoony kiss thing.
Yeah, where he's like, unlike Bill Clinton, I fuck my wife. That's what that was about. That's what it was about.
Hey, baby. I've been kicked around a little too much on this podcast. How about you lighten up, man?
I just showed up to play Donkey Kong Land. I don't know why everybody's making such a big deal out about me getting a BJ, man. It was the 90s. We were all playing Donkey Kong Land and getting blowjobs by interns, man, is what we did.
Everyone's sticking something into something. Maybe it's a cartridge in a Game Boy, or maybe it's a penis in a mouth. You can't be certain. It's the 90s, baby.
When there's something banana yellow, it could be a stain, could be a cartridge. Who's to say?
I'm biting my lower lip right now and giving a half thumbs up. But
it's mandatory. I don't. Nope, we can't see it at home, but I swear that's what we're doing, because that's the only way to do a proper Clinton. Otherwise, it's Matthew McConaughey,
right?
And nobody wants.
That's the only difference. The voice is virtually identical, but there's this je ne sais quoi when you bite your bottom lip that turns it into Clinton.
No, well, see, Matthew McConaughey is far more laid back than Clinton. Clinton is a go-getter. Well, Matthew McConaughey is content to let the world come to him.
Right, that's right.
So, and, I just do believe I just do believe I'm not gonna stick up my thumb. I'm just gonna do this voice, and it's gonna be all right. It's fun.
Hey man, sometimes you're sitting in the White House, you're playing your bongos, and hey, mouth falls on your penis. What are you gonna do? Just go with the flow, man.
So anyway, there's a second Donkey Kong Land commercial later in the summer of 95. I think Donkey Kong Land probably has the most commercial penetration, no pun intended, of any Nintendo game in history. Maybe with the exception of the original Super Mario Brothers and some others, but because these commercials started airing in mid-spring, and they went to I want to say September 95, because they had to replace the commercial, and they replaced it with a CGI Donkey Kong walking through a representation of jungle hijinks.
Right. And this is the one where, correct me if I'm wrong, a giant Game Boy comes out of the foliage. He does this auga eyeball thing where they come out, much like Diddy and Dixie did in Donkey Kong Country 2 when they would encounter a boss.
Or even Donkey did when he was on a ledge in Donkey Kong Country.
Good point. And then the Game Boy falls on him as if it were a trap being set by Nintendo.
No, there's a plate of bananas, and
right.
And there's a wooden plank connected to the plate of bananas. So when he picked up the plate of bananas, the Game Boy fell on him. They say, "We've trapped the beast on Game Boy," or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it was something like graphics so amazing we had to trap him to get him all in, or some bullshit marketing thing. Yeah,
but it was kind of cool, and it's funny that Donkey Kong Land had such visible commercials. Honestly, Donkey Kong Land was everywhere in the summer of 95.
Yeah.
And we just recently passed the 20th anniversary of it. And because it was such a news-heavy summer, what with the Renaissance and us going to E3 and whatnot, all these conventions, we haven't really had time to honor the anniversary of the second game in the Donkey Kong universe. I mean, this is
how negligent we've been. Nintendo has done a better job of acknowledging Donkey Kong Land's 20th anniversary than we have.
How did they do that?
By re-releasing it.
Well, I mean,
not on the date, but hey, it's the year of Donkey Kong Land.
And Donkey Kong Land is a game that is, I think, very important to not only Donkey Kong and the Rare's Donkey Kong, but to Nintendo in general, and it's kind of been forgotten about. And so with this Spotlight episode, we're not only going to spotlight Donkey Kong Land, but we're going to try to justify to you the importance of Donkey Kong Land.
Well, and it's nice because this is, thankfully, it having been re-released, if you've been on the fence, perhaps this will get you to pony up that, $4.99.
Yeah, it's not expensive. I want to. How much was it back in the day? Like $30?
Yeah, I think Game Boy games in the U.S. were standard at $29.99.
$29.99. So yeah. What's your excuse now? You don't have to be a Mitt Romney to pony up the cash here.
So what's your personal history coming at this game? I know we cover this repeatedly on past episodes, like our Summer Swamp Ass series, but. One more Cliff's Notes version.
I think it's important for setting the stage when we're talking exclusively about Donkey Kong Land.
People would be completely lost if they didn't know how we first played this thing.
Well, it's important because if we're going to justify like what this game means in general, we've got to first say what it means to us. So yeah, I played Donkey Kong Country for the SNES, if you didn't know what system it was for, with Elliot, the proto Chad, who I initially played these Donkey Kong games with before I kicked him to the curb when I met you.
Chad Zero.
Yeah, I upgraded.
Or you waited a while and released a lackluster sequel to me, just called it Zero because you like the shape.
Yeah, that's right, and I delayed it.
Yeah.
I delayed it so much.
Elliot's coming back. Just wait. When you get really lazy.
So we were playing Donkey Kong Country, and we were like 11 years old at the time. I was 11, he was like 10, and I keep him perpetually young, a little younger than me. I keep them about a year younger than me at all times.
I was 10 when it came out, too. Yeah, you've certainly got a type.
I like to be the old man in the room. What can I say? I have a fetish when it comes to playing video games. So it took us a while to beat Donkey Kong Country because it was the first game we really actually beat. Besides the original Super Mario Brothers, without the benefit of cheating devices or warp whistles or warp zones or whatever. We actually sat through and beat the whole thing. So we didn't beat it till the spring. I got it for Christmas, and that's the copy we played.
Did you know about the exclamation mark to signify that you have?
It took a while to figure that out because I was like, why are they really excited about some levels and not others?
Yeah, and the first time you play, they could give a shit,
and it doesn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. It does not specify in the instruction manual that's what it means.
I don't recall whether or not it does. I think I just
because I read that sucker from front to back, and I do not remember that.
Yeah, but it's you notice that for some reason the percentages are changing, but of course, unlike Donkey Kong Country 2, there's no collectible to check the box.
It was half-assed in the first two games, Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Land.
Okay, let's not start throwing pejoratives around. They used their whole ass to develop Donkey Kong Country. They actually used double asses. They were working 80-hour weeks.
No. But as far as they were probably spending so much time actually making the game that they couldn't refine that system until Donkey Kong Country 2.
That's a perfect example of why Greg told MF Wolf, Mitchell Wolf, at San Diego Comic-Con.
When you say Greg without his last name, I think you mean the Conquer character.
Yeah, he took MF Wolf by the shoulder and killed him.
Well, if Greg...
No, Greg Mayles.
If Greg from Conquer is the Grim Reaper of animals, the MF Wolf in MF Wolf's name probably made him think that he was one of his targets,
It's possible. Yeah. Also, I don't like the distinction of animals versus humans because we're just a kind of great ape,
Yeah, but I imagine like if the afterlife has some sort of bureaucracy,
Right.
we outnumber all other apes to a vast degree. So I imagine they have to have their more efficient Reaper on
you mean
that
we're
case.
better apes than all the other ones?
No, I mean we're filthy fuckers who fuck way too much.
No, that means we've won. It's a competition with all the other species.
Sure it is, yeah.
No, but I was referring to Greg Mayles, the mastermind behind Donkey Kong Country and Part 2, but he told MF Wolf at Comic-Con that now that he thinks on it, the sequels, like Viva Pinata, Trouble in Paradise, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong Country 2 are generally the better ones because they have an opportunity to really refine the concepts without having to build the foundation at the same time.
That's why I'm not even buying Sea of Thieves. I'm waiting to Sea of Thieves 2.
The sequel, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
We hated Sea of Thieves before anyone else.
Yeah. We hated Donkey Kong. Okay. This is not the place to go on this tangent. But our last Donkey Kong Spotlight episode was Donkey Kong 64, and we were pretty hard on that game.
Yeah,
we were like, okay, finally, everybody gave us shit for giving it glowing reviews when it came out. Finally, we're on the right side of history.
Yeah.
Turns out, in the intervening 15 years, everybody now loves Donkey Kong 64. It's everybody's favorite Donkey Kong game.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I look no further than the YouTube comments and likes on that Kongversation video for how the public feels about our opinions. But
I don't think you'll.
That, by the way, is the last time I drank alcohol before recording. I have not done that since that episode.
Well, I don't, sober or not, I don't think anybody has to worry about what we think about Donkey Kong Land because you probably don't care. But also, I think our opinions are generally uniform and mostly positive when it comes to this game.
Yeah. I actually, do you have any background to give?
Yeah, so it took us till about spring to play Donkey Kong Country.
Sure.
And the commercials for Donkey Kong Land started playing like pretty early. Considering the game came out in June, they were playing like commercials for it, I think in late April. Wow. That's when it started. Like they were like pre-promoting this game heavily.
For a Game Boy game, that's a pretty long stretch.
Well, and why not? Because this is just, riding the wave of Donkey Kong Country Mania, which gamers who are younger than probably, if they're born in the early 90s and they kind of were too young to really experience Donkey Kong Country Mania for what it was, then they don't realize how huge it was. I mean, before Pokemon, before the N64, there was...
And during a relative dry spell for Mario.
Yeah, Mario was like a non-entity for 2 years. And, they started like plugging Donkey Kong Land heavily. And I remember like turning to Elliot, we saw the first commercial, and that's how I learned about it. And I was like... I didn't say fuck because I didn't say fuck back then, but I'm paraphrasing. I said, "Holy fucking shit balls, Elliot! We've got to fucking beat Donkey Kong Country because there's a
good
Game
grief,
Boy game."
Elliot.
Well, no, I'm saying this to Elliot. I said, "We've got to, beat Donkey Kong Country because there's a new one coming out for Game Boy." And he wasn't that convinced because he was like, "Well, why are they doing one for Game Boy? Like, why didn't they have a sequel ready for the SNES 6 months later?" It was like, okay, well, we've got to get it.
Childhood expectations are adorable, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, this is how crazy though. 7 months between Donkey Kong releases, and then it would be 6 months after that, and we got Donkey Kong Country 2. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And then after Donkey Kong Country 3, it was 11? No, 12 years between proper DKCs.
Donkey Kong Land 3
Donkey
came
Kong
out.
Country 3, I meant. But it was a while.
But I mean, when you're a kid time is remarkably different than adult time.
Yeah.
Kid time, a year can feel like 5 years. So generally, there's a massive gap between these games. And
life is like a toilet paper roll. The closer you get to the end, the faster it spins.
that was the original line in Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah, they changed it. Obviously.
Fuck you, Zemeckis.
Yeah, well, they were really chasing that Oscar, and they're like, yeah, let's cut out the poop jokes. We'll make it chocolate. That's subtle enough.
Yeah.
So we like frantically like raced to the end of Donkey Kong Country. I want to say we beat K. Rool like a week later. So that was a great motivator to beat Donkey Kong Country, and it was a big moment. And so Donkey Kong Land came out, and I remember putting it on layaway because that's what
you
a
do
kid.
This with video games so much more than I didn't even realize this was a thing that people did.
Well, I don't do it anymore. I just buy the game I want.
Well,
now.
yes, I know, but I've heard multiple anecdotes from you about doing this layaway thing with video games.
But it makes sense because if you get like a small allowance, and yeah, I mean. $30. I think I got like $5 a week then for doing like my household chores.
Nice.
Which, so I wasn't spoiled.
That's
but,
a king's ransom.
Yeah. So, by that point I had like some saved up, but I had like a couple weeks to go. So I put on layaway because at least then I'm actually, the game's almost in my possession. I'm like working towards it,
Right.
So it's a psychological motivator for a kid. And, of course, the day I got Donkey Kong Land, I also got my first Nintendo Power, which had Donkey Kong Land on the cover, and that's where I learned about Donkey Kong Country 2, and that kind of kicked off the whole summer of Donkey Kong for me, where Donkey Kong Country was everywhere. Like in promotion, Nintendo was like promoting it to the hilt for like a full year.
Yeah.
And Donkey Kong Land was everywhere too. Not only the aforementioned commercials, but oh my god, like they made Donkey Kong Land brand bubble gum.
Oh yeah, there were these weird bath toys that were also bubble based. A lot of bubble themed merchandise for Donkey Kong Land that has nary a bubble in the entire game. Well, no, I take that back. There are, I think, some background bubbles in Kremlantis, but it's certainly not a core gameplay mechanic.
The bubble gum, I must have bought that like I want to say upwards of a dozen times. Like every time I saw it, I convinced my mom to let me buy it because it was like, oh my god, Donkey Kong's and Diddy Kong, they're on the front of this bubble gum and it says Donkey Kong Land. I've got to buy it.
You have to.
You
would
have
be
to.
Foolish not to.
I mean, to be fair, I would do that today, but it would be such a rare occurrence to see them on a food product today that's not like Super Mario branded,
People don't like to be reminded of wild apes when they eat food. It's strange.
Yeah, you would think like they would like put them on bananas. Like Nintendo would enter like a permanent like marketing deal to like replace the Chiquita lady and like put like Donkey Kong in a fruit hat or something.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Well, they actually did do a cross promotion with was it Dole or Chiquita when Returns came out?
Probably Dole. That sounds more right.
Yeah, Dole was the one that would always do the Super Monkey Ball underwriting, and yeah, they're very video game savvy.
Well, let's see if I can do this. Bob Dole is gonna play Donkey Kong Country. No, I can't do it. Okay. It's been 20 years since I've had to do a Bob Dole.
Bob Dole's going to play Donkey Kong Land.
You're just doing Norm Macdonald doing Bob Dole.
Yeah, but at least that's a cultural touchstone.
Anyway, oh my God, Bob Dole. There you go. There's your Bob Dole reference, kids.
Yep. 1996 called.
This is why we're YouTube superstars along with PewDiePie.
PewDiePie's audience and Bob Dole's fan base are one and the same.
Why don't teenage girls listen to our show? I don't really know.
So
why aren't we like as big as Tyler Oakley?
I don't even know who that is.
There you go, because you're not a teenage girl, Chad.
I guess. I guess I'm not a teenage girl.
It's okay. It's okay if you want to be. I accept you for who you are.
Yeah. So Donkey Kong Land was
tell me about your experiences
my
with
first Donkey Kong Universe game.
That's right, because your parents were weird Amish people who were afraid of technology. Things with buttons will corrupt our child.
Right. And what's even stranger still is that somehow in their warped sense of technology, they saw a game device that I could take anywhere with me as more damaging than one that I had to sit down in a single room to use.
Probably because it was monochrome. They thought it was more in line with like the Leave It to Beaver puritanical values of the 50s.
Yeah. Well, 4 colors is 252 less than what the Super Nintendo output. So that might have been part of the mental math they were doing.
Yeah. So when did you get Donkey Kong Land then?
It would have been 95.
Oh man, so you were there like right near the beginning then.
Yeah. That was 1 year. Like a year and a half after. So I was obsessed with video games as a kid, and of course my parents wanted nothing to do with them. They wanted nothing to do with the internet. I had to like
it's like when you're obsessed with sex as a teenager. You can't have it, but you long for it from afar.
Yeah, but this wasn't. This was even. Well, no, I guess it was kind of like sex from a teenager. I was going to say that it's different because teenagers only want sex because they can't have it, but that's not true. No. Teenagers want sex because sex is fun.
Well, and because your hormones are kicking in, and you've got a massive, rush of blood to your genitalia. So.
Yeah, they want sex because their hormones are telling them it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
My childhood brain was telling me that video games were the best thing in the world when from a very young age. Like
honestly it's probably on par with sex, kids. Like
really.
it's a toss up depending on how you're feeling on a given day.
Right. Yeah, some days you got to go with the games. Let's be honest. But I basically was obsessed with games. Eventually, when we learned how to write persuasive essays in school,
that's right.
My persuasive essay was to convince my parents to let me use my lawn mowing money. I would go around the neighborhood and mow everyone's lawns for $20 a pop.
Yeah, your lawn mowing job, which I still say you should go back to because it sounds amazing. Like sometimes I long for the days of just mowing the lawn. Like it's simple. It's good, honest work.
Oh, it sucks. It's the worst. It is the worst thing you could do.
No, we've talked about this, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just like the solitude of it appeals to me. Like you can just be lost in your own world.
Right. Well, it also sucked though that I was using I had a slightly faulty Walkman that I would try and listen to while I was mowing the lawn, but it
should have gone with the Talk Boy.
Should have got the Talk Boy would have played my my Donkey Kong Country soundtrack cassettes. Like I had all this stuff like Donkey Kong merch. I had a Nintendo Power. I had the DKC exposed video that I would just watch over and over, pretending that I was playing. It was the most depressing thing in the world.
You were like somebody in the Soviet Union who was really into the Beatles but couldn't listen to their music.
Right. I have to listen to these weird knockoff the Russian monkeys. But yeah, I basically convinced my parents to let me buy myself a Game Boy.
It's Soviet Russia. Instruments play you. All right. One Yakov Smirnoff joke of the season.
Yes, there can be only one, and you've used it well. Yeah, but basically, that was how I came to Donkey Kong Land, obsessed with Donkey Kong Country, swept up in the mania, but having no way to actually play the game proper. And then when this came out, I mean, I was playing, before the show, I was playing it on the 3DS just to sort of refresh my memory, and it all came back. Like, I played this thing so much and so obsessively that I was going way off the beaten path, just instinctively, like muscle memory, to find bonus stages that no reasonable human being would ever find.
Yeah.
That's me with Donkey Kong Land. This is my first ownership experience with the DKU.
Yeah, that's like crazy. Like for me, like this is like the quintessential like epilogue to Donkey Kong Country, and prelude to Donkey Kong Country 2. Like, I can't separate the lineage, the actual chronological lineage in my mind. Like for me, like the story just goes Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Land, Donkey Kong Country 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't like imagine like playing that first.
Well, I mean, I played Donkey Kong Country at friends' houses, and sometimes like that. I would basically go over to friends' houses, and they were sick of playing video games, as spoiled little shits get because video games are the best thing ever. And how the fuck would you ever be tired of playing Donkey Kong Country? But I would go over to their house, and like they would play with Nerf guns and stuff, and I would just sit by the TV playing single player.
Yeah, Nerf guns never did anything for me. They would always bore me.
Yeah, I honestly, there's
never any consequence for Nerf guns for me. Like, how do you know you like?
do you want wanton violence? Like,
yeah, I kind of like, at least with water guns, like you had evidence of your kill.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But yeah, so that's how I came to Donkey Kong Land. I love it. I know its faults, but I forgive all of them because I can't extricate myself from the mindset that I had when I first played it when it was virtually faultless. And this is, like I didn't really understand that there was anything wrong with how blurry everything looked on the DMG, the dot matrix Game Boy. It never bothered me because I didn't know any better, and so it still doesn't bother me. Although it does look quite a bit better on the 3DS.
It looked great on
problems.
It looked great on the Super Game Boy as well.
That's right, and it did have the jungle border.
And actually, the Game Boy Pocket. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that had like a much clearer screen than the monochrome, and it looked fine on there as well. But yeah, it was just the original brick Game Boy. Yeah, it was very difficult to play on that. You almost had to. I know I had to like play it first on the Super Game Boy, and then I would kind of memorize everything, and then I could play it on the regular Game Boy, knowing where everything was. Because yeah, the biggest fault, the thing that trips people up about Donkey Kong Land, and it is brought up to this day, is the backgrounds were super detailed.
Well, some of them were. Like the worst offender, unfortunately, is the jungle archetype, which is the first one you encounter.
And because of that, everything is just kind of blurs together. It's hard to see the actual character running across the screen.
Yeah, it honestly, as you get through the game, it's like they started to realize that there was a problem, and they get a lot better. I mean, hell, the rigging stages, which they were established here before they ever showed up in Donkey Kong Country 2, but the backgrounds there are just white pixels. They don't really have any complicated backgrounds. They started figuring it out pretty quickly. I really do feel like Donkey Kong Land gets an unfair rap just because of the jungle stage.
Well, any game gets an unfair rap just judged on the first area, because that you're guaranteed that's what most people are going to see. If they can't get past anywhere, they're going to see the first area. So it's why games are never judged by their final bosses usually.
So let's talk about the story behind the game.
And this is why Donkey Kong Land was an instant sell the second you rip open the box, or read about
the second after it's been sold to you already,
or read about Nintendo Power. But yeah, it's like the most amazing fourth wall breaking story I think I've ever seen in a video game. It's a complete utter piss take.
Yeah, I've got the Donkey Kong Land instruction booklet in my hands that has the story. Are
you going to
read a few excerpts?
Why don't you just read it?
All right. So, well, I mean, it's really long, so I'm not going to read the whole damn thing.
I have all night.
All right, shit, man. All right, you ready for story time?
I'm sitting on the rug with my graham crackers.
Cranky Kong, aging video game pioneer and primate patriarch, swayed back and forth in his rocking chair as he harassed his grand ape Donkey Kong.
Grand ape, ooh.
Oh, there you go.
And his little buddy Diddy Kong. Well, I've got to admit, your last adventure was a bit more successful than I ever thought it would be, he jibed. Of course, put a few fancy graphics and some modern music in a game, and kids will buy anything nowadays.
I'm sorry, is Cranky a pirate parrot?
He's just an old man.
Okay.
Would you prefer to do your Iwazaru voice?
Unfortunately, I do not have the instruction manual in front of me.
Hyle.
But I would talk like this!
That's right. Yeah, that was it. Okay. Donkey and Diddy tried discreetly to cover their ears as they stared out into the jungle surrounding Cranky's cabin. The old ape continued his taunting.
Back in our days, understand, we had an extremely limited color palette to work with, and we still made great games. No way you could duplicate that feat today, Donkey, my boy. No siree.
Cranky had been going on and on like this for what seemed like hours, and Donkey Kong had finally had enough.
I like how Donkey and Diddy are just sitting there for hours listening to Cranky. Like, don't they have a life?
Yeah, there's actually a render in the instruction booklet of them sitting outside Cranky's hut just with their fingers in their ears.
It's like, what are they doing? Leave!
Yeah, what's wrong with you? All right, so I think Diddy's... Donkey Kong's up next. Oh, God, I'm not going to do this... I'm just going to do a regular sort of mellow dude voice. People like Donkey Kong Country for more than just the fancy graphics, you old coot, he snapped. The number of colors, the resolution, it doesn't make a difference. It was just plain fun. All right, here's Diddy. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and we worked hard fighting K. Rool and his goons.
Diddy chimed in. Both he and Donkey still had the bumps and bruises to prove it. Cranky nodded his head knowingly. The two youngsters had predictably risen to the bait and swallowed it hook, line, and sinker.
So you're saying that an adventure like your last one would be a success, even on an 8-bit system, like Game Boy, for example?
Cranky said slyly. That's right, DK exclaimed, and blah, blah, blah. So... Oh, okay, so let me skip ahead.
I'll believe it when I see it,
Cranky scowled.
I'll call old K. Rool and arrange everything. You'll wake up tomorrow without your bananas.
Donkey and Diddy looked at each other, realizing they'd been set up. So, yeah, Cranky is arranging the whole thing.
And doesn't it end with Donkey sighing and regrettably realizing he's gonna miss the banana bowl?
Oh no. Donkey could barely contain his anger. He was hoping he could loaf around the treehouse tomorrow. After all, the banana bowl was on, and but he wasn't about to let the old ape get the best of him. Bring it on, old ape, bring it on, was all he said as he stalked off to the treehouse. He was going to get some sleep for the adventure ahead. So he takes a nap before he goes out.
I told you, Chad, napping is great.
That's apparently Donkey Kong has prescribes to the same philosophy. So thank you for indulging in the voices. I know the narrator sort of morphed over time.
That's okay. So let's talk about the banana bowl. What sport do you think this is? And why isn't this a bigger thing in our constant continuity speculation?
It is literally just hurling bananas into a giant bowl.
No, it's just a TV show that airs footage of bananas in bowls.
Look, they only just got television technology recently on Donkey Kong Island. All right, they're still coming to terms with it.
The plane just crashed in Lost Mangroves.
Right.
Yeah. No. I love that story. I probably read that so many times during car trips that summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Elliot. I called him up the evening I got Donkey Kong Land, and I told him basically I phrased it like Cranky Kong
he's a dick.
Yeah, he's a total bad guy in this one, and Elliot took that to mean you fight Cranky Kong in the game, Cranky Kong throws barrels at you or something.
Should have been Mother Brain.
But yeah, no, this is a very clever way to repeat the exact same story from Donkey Kong Country, but it's a total piss take, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'd say to this day, the most meta that a DKU plot has ever been.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's strange that we really like how lived in the worlds feel in the Donkey Kong universe, especially the likes of the DKC and Banjo series, and Conker as well, although Conker does its own share of fourth wall breaking, especially in the end game. But this was the second game in this whole universe, and it was already completely pulling the rug out from under the concept of video games.
Well, to be fair, Donkey Kong Country had the same thing, and
but that was yes, this was backstory too, but that was really only a character note for Cranky himself.
Yeah, but the whole thing about Diddy wanting to be a video game hero, and it's been part of the DNA of the series, and that's just the weird juxtaposition between it's like, as far as cartoony animals go, it's probably as realistic as you're ever going to get, but it's also incredibly meta and doesn't give a shit about portraying like a reality outside of being in a video game. So yeah, I don't know, I love it. I'm not gonna like try to justify my hypocrisy. I love like the dual nature of Rare's Donkey Kong. But you would never see this in a modern Nintendo game,
right?
You never see it you never see it in a modern Donkey Kong game, let alone Mario or any other series.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of thing that they might think cheapens the experience, but in actuality, it kind of it enriches it, because you, as a player, you feel like you're sort of, it's like a winking joke that you're having with the developers, and so it's, but at the same time the characters are sharing in that joke, and it just brings together everyone in front of and behind the scenes. It's nice, and especially as a little kid, it makes you feel savvier than you actually are, just because you're in on the same story that Cranky is. It's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people mistake Donkey Kong Land, who have never played it or have only heard things about it. They think it's just a downgraded port of Donkey Kong Country, and no, it's a completely new game. Yes, it's definitely modeled from Donkey Kong Country. It uses the same assets, but it is.
I doubt that it really does use the same assets. I would imagine they had to re-render these in the correct resolution. I don't think they just sampled the SNES ones.
No,
I think these are probably new assets that they have created
new-ish. I mean, it's still
based on the same renders, but
yeah.
But a lot of them are brand new, of course. The majority of them are brand new.
Yeah, and the majority of the level archetypes are brand new as well. I mean, Donkey Kong Land is not a port, and people have this argument about the Donkey Kong Land trilogy, each installment to varying degrees, and I'm sure we'll get into that in future episodes, but Donkey Kong Land itself is the one Donkey Kong Land where you shouldn't even be having this argument. It is a new game. Yes, some level archetypes from Donkey Kong Country are brought back, but if by and large, it's all a brand new experience. It'd be like saying Super Mario Land is the same experience as Super Mario Brothers,
right? And well, yeah, actually, that's a pretty apt comparison, because Super Mario Land is just about as divergent from the Mario Brothers concept as Donkey Kong Land is from its originator.
And what I love about both games is they take the original concept and they're not afraid to get a lot more weird with it.
Oh, yeah. I was hoping that weird was the word you would use, because, both of them, the Easter Island heads over there, the tornadoes that you bounce on over here. I mean, this is kind of a batshit crazy game.
Well, let's talk about some of the ways that Donkey Kong Land differs from Donkey Kong Country, at least as far as general, aesthetics and gameplay and fundamentals go, because it is, out of all the Donkey Kong Land games, it does stray the furthest from Donkey Kong Country into kind of a new experience.
To its credit, by the way, I think that's pretty much the reason why, if I had a choice on any given day to play a Donkey Kong Land, I would almost invariably go with this one, unless I was just really into speed running on Donkey Kong Land 3.
And honestly, I kind of felt let down that the sequels didn't maintain a lot of these elements.
Yeah.
I thought Donkey Kong Land should have its own distinct visual identity and language. And,
so there are, of course, map screens, but unlike the previous one, there's no overworld. You just basically go from world to world to world through the end boss stage. But there are alternate paths, which is something the series wouldn't ever really repurpose until Donkey Kong Country 3.
And even that, yeah, I guess there are alternate paths there, but I mean,
slightly. I mean, you could choose to go to Mechanos or Cotton Top Cove.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as that, there's just more exploration than there was I get to choose which level to go to, and I can skip a level entirely.
Right.
Yeah, it's I guess Tropical Freeze kind of brought that back to some degree.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's modeled very closely to how it was in Tropical Freeze, in that in this game you have to there are rocks blocking the divergent paths, and you have to find a TNT barrel with a lit fuse to blow up the rocks. So
it was like there was like a bomb like symbol.
Yeah, it was a barrel bomb essentially. And you had to find that, and then you take it on the map screen, walk up to one of the rocks, and they would automatically detonate. That's sort of analogous to the secret exits in Tropical Freeze.
Although
it's still something you have to find.
Well, these weren't secret though. The explosives were always at the very end of the level. So.
Well, right, but they would have, wouldn't they have like some levels would have 2 exits that had explosives in each in front of them? So
no, not for the explosives. There would be many levels with multiple exits though,
okay,
and that's something Tropical Freeze brought back.
Right.
But yes, the downside to this though is you can go from world to world, but you can't actually skip. Like if you're in World 4, you can't skip back to World 1 without walking through World 3 and World 2.
Yeah.
And that's because there were no Kong helpers in the game. There was no Funky, no Cranky, even though he plays the biggest part in the story. Cranky doesn't appear, and no Candy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's nothing else on the map screens besides levels and rocks. So yeah, and at the time, I didn't think anything of this. I was like, oh, okay, it's a Game Boy game. They downscale, sure, whatever. But because there's no candy, the save system is dramatically different from any other Rare Donkey Kong game. Would you like to have the honors of explaining the glorious save system of Donkey Kong Land? The most challenging save system, I should add.
Well, that's the thing, because you have to earn the ability to save, and it's something that people
hate this. Modern gamers hate this. And I'm going to sound like Cranky Kong, but I don't give a damn. Modern gamers are so soft; they expect the game to save automatically for them. They don't even want to think about it.
So what you have to do, unlike Donkey Kong Country, in which the Kong letters that you collect in each stage, they would just give you a 1-up, so they're really optional collectibles. In Donkey Kong Land, you're only allowed to save at the end of a level if you collected the Kong letters. So
such a dick move.
It really is. Although I like it because it's different, and they're usually not all that hard to find.
No, and if you're really in a pinch, go back to the first level, get all the Kong letters there, and save.
That was usually my tactic if I was having trouble.
Throughout all of Big Ape City, if I didn't get the Kong letters, I would always, after every stage, go back to 1-1, get all the Kong letters, and save. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so it's been very controversial, as you said, with people playing it on the 3DS.
People who didn't play it back in the day or haven't played it for 20 years.
Right, but I don't remember ever getting mad at it. I just kind of, that's different. It was just different, but no less valid. And again, that might be because of my extremely rosy-tinted glasses, this being my first game that I got to play as my beloved characters that I watched from afar, but I don't know. I don't think it's that radical of an idea.
No. And honestly, back then, 20 years ago, 1995, saving was still a luxury. Like, you were thankful if a game had saving ability. Right. And more often than not, you had to, like, earn that somehow. You had to get to a certain point to save. A save point, if you will. So, at least with this, you didn't have to, like, fight your way to get to a Candy in a world or a Funky in a world to go back to see Candy. This was actually somewhat more convenient than Donkey Kong Country saving system.
Yeah, and this game also it had the same style bonus rooms as Donkey Kong Country, in that, like we said before, you're not collecting a Creme coin or anything like that. You're just participating in another room, and just getting to that room counts as doing the bonus. But there was a repeated type of bonus room that used a new item for this game. Did we ever come up with they're essentially spinning coins that on one side have Diddy's face and the other side have DK's. What do we officially call those?
I don't know. I think I've alternated between names. I think right now I just call them like Kong tokens or DK Diddy tokens, or I don't really know if I have an actual term for them.
Well, I did so we've talked about this previously, but I did a lot of the first music rips of Game Boy games, and some older, more obscure like SNES games and some N64 titles back in 99, 2000. This was one of them. So I took it upon myself to name the tracks. And I named the file select screen Spinning Diddy Coin, because your select icon is this coin item. So that's what I called them back then. I guess for some reason I didn't recognize that DK's face is also on them.
Even back then you were biased towards Diddy.
Yeah, he was my hero.
But yeah, so you go into these rooms and basically there's a barrel rocking back and forth above you, like going across to and fro each side of the screen.
Yeah, it's moving horizontally at the top of the screen, but it's also rotating 180 degrees from left to right, going down toward you.
Back and to the right. Back and to the right.
So, yeah, there's also a switch on the ground, and you go through the game collecting these spinning Diddy and DK coins, these tokens, not knowing really what they're for. And this took me a long time to figure out that this is actually... this is the reason that you're doing this. There's a relationship between these things. In these randomly scattered style of bonus rooms, you would take those items, it would aggregate them, give you a total. So, if you collected 12 of them, you would have a counter at the top that said 12. You step on this switch, and depending on what direction the barrel is pointing, it shoots out a 1-up balloon, or
no, it shot out
coin.
the token. It shot out the token. Yeah,
shot out the token. And if you collect the token in that room, you get a 1-up.
That's right. So and you could like go through your entire inventory of coins. If you collected 30 coins, you could shoot all of them, and potentially get 30 lives.
Yeah, there was a way to get into a rhythm where it would be like pointing directly down at you every single time. So if you're good at this thing, you've essentially broken the game, because there's no way you're going to get a game over.
And it's funny, there's no Kong helpers in the game, but this could have easily been a swanky game in a future incarnation.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And another funny thing, the way that the Donkey Kong Land shows your lives, it's strange, because the whole philosophy, even shared in Donkey Kong Land, was to avoid HUD elements as much as possible. Land follows the same principle as Donkey Kong Country. You see your bananas when you collect them, but then they disappear. However, the entire time you're playing, it's always got a life counter at the bottom of the screen, represented by little hearts, not by the balloons, which are also in this game. And rather than tell you with a number value how many lives you have, it literally populates the entire bottom of the screen, almost like Zelda health style, with hearts all the way across. And really, they can only fit about 15 to 20 hearts on a single screen. So once you've collected that many lives, it just fills up and doesn't look any differently, but you can die repeatedly and it will never go down.
Wait, I thought it did go down. I thought it cut you off at like however many.
You can fill it up way past the point at which you can see, and just keep dying over and over, and only when you have died back down to that point, getting close to zero, will it start to show up.
Are you sure?
I don't know what I'd say I'm 95% sure that it does not cut you off. Or maybe there's like some super high limit, like 99, but I certainly don't know what that limit would be. I do know that I used to fill that bar way up and never had to worry about lives.
Okay. Okay. I might be remembering wrong then. The heart was weird. I felt like almost a betrayal of Donkey Kong aesthetics at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But every Donkey Kong Land game used them, even though, Land 2 and 3, which kind of hewed more closely to their country counterparts. So, yeah, weird. I don't really know why they did that. I guess they just wanted like a stable barometer of your lives, and not like have it, maybe an extra HUD element. Maybe it didn't look right. I don't know, but
it's hard to tell. It's also this is another one of those games that I'm sure had a very quick development cycle.
It had to. Oh my god! Did they start this after Donkey Kong Country came out? Because then it was a very, very quick development.
Well,
cycle.
no, I'm sure it was. I mean, I have no way of knowing. There's literally no way to know. But I'm sure that there was some overlap between this and DKC. But even so, it's an incredibly ambitious project on the Game Boy. It's not so much using the ACM graphics because you can downsample those no problem. I think the most impressive technical thing on Donkey Kong Land is the sprite size and how many sprites are enormous. Like DK and Diddy are they're like 4 times as big as Mario in Super Mario Land.
Oh yeah, it's everything's like big and bold and glorious. And yeah, I don't know. And real quick on the hearts too, it is funny how much retro borrowed from Donkey Kong Land, or they deemed acceptable because it was in Donkey Kong Land. And one of them is hearts. They brought hearts in as your health meter in their country games. So hearts made a comeback. As did the end of level portals.
That's right. Yeah, at the end of the stage, rather than like in Donkey Kong Country, of course, you walk into a cave or an alcove of some sort to lead you out of the stage back onto the map screen. Here, there's like this otherworldly swirling black and white wormhole spiral that leads you, I guess, a few feet to the next place that you have to go.
I know. But yeah, in Tropical Freeze, the portals that are used as alternate exits very much look similar to the Donkey Kong Land portal, so much that I fan-wanked it that they're the same. And
really, they don't look that similar. The ones in Tropical Freeze are blue. These ones are like black and white stripes.
How do you know these aren't blue though?
But they're black and white stripes.
Everything's black and white on the Game Boy.
In the center.
Everything's black and white on the Game Boy. These could be blue.
These are zebra striped. I don't see the similarity there. But okay, fan wank away.
Fruit Stripe had blue in it. And
you're right as both a fan and a wanker.
Fruit Stripe had blue, and that had a zebra.
Fair enough.
There's end of level portals. Again, much weirder than Donkey Kong Country. And you also teleported your buddy instead of tagging them in.
Yeah. Yeah, that was obviously a technical limitation. You can't have... I just mentioned how huge these sprites are. You're not going to have 2 playable, sprite characters running around. They had to use the baddies sparingly for that exact reason. And even so, sometimes you get like weird sprite glitches. You'd see those a lot, especially on the Super Game Boy. And that's just there's just too much being crammed onto a single screen for the Game Boy a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no way they could put two Kong characters. So rather than do something like DK64, which I think it was a similar technical limitation, or at least that's one of the things we've heard. They introduced the tag barrel.
Yeah, one of the reasons they said they couldn't actually replicate country gameplay. It's funny. The animations are hilarious whenever you tag in Donkey or Diddy. Like the character who's leaving like shrinks down into like this exploding star, and then the other one like spins up, and they're like their arms are folded, and they're like spinning up, and then they like come up, and then they come down on the ground and land, and then it's weird. It's almost I can't like describe what it reminds me of, but there's
a lot of use of portals and weird transport mechanisms in this game. Another strange one is the continue. Rather than it just being a continue barrel and that's where you start, it's this sparkly like deep space icon thing that you hit. It's like a circle floating in the air. You hit that and it flips over with a thumbs up on it.
And the thumbs up actually has 4 fingers, so it's a monkey's hand.
It's a Kong hand, yeah.
Yeah.
And then whenever you die, rather than just appear where that thumb hand is, it actually turns sideways and dumps you out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's weird. Why didn't they just use a star barrel? Like, I'm not complaining because I like the visual identity of Donkey Kong Land. I love it.
It's weird.
Yeah, but all this weirdness, and people might say we're hypocrites because we complained about the weirdness for Jungle Beat. Like, Jungle Beat's so weird, but what about Donkey Kong Land, Chad and Hyle?
Well, Donkey Kong Land gets the core gameplay right, whereas Jungle Beat went in a completely different direction.
And I think there's more allowances to kind of stray off the beaten path for a portable game like this. It seems less consequential and less series defining.
Yeah.
So yeah, get a little weird with it. Why not?
And while it is weird, it also has character consistency, which is another thing that Jungle Beat lacked.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, 80% of it is still like very much in the spirit of Donkey Kong Country. So I like those little flourishes that make it a little looser. It's like Donkey Kong Country after hours. The lampshade comes on.
Yeah.
It gets a little drinky poo in it.
Yeah, let's loosen the tie a little bit. Yeah,
and then it jumps through a swirling portal.
Thumbs up.
Also, I need to mention the flying ropes. This is a unique type of bonus stage or bonus stage entry, I should say, in Donkey Kong Land, where you can break the ground and a rope will levitate out of the ground, and you can jump on it real quick and get taken off screen into a bonus stage.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, these flying rope bonus stages would be the aforementioned ones with the spinning barrel shooting out the tokens.
Sometimes, yeah, and
it was just a very strange way to activate these, because one of the disadvantages of Donkey Kong Land and the Land series as a whole is just the size of the Game Boy screen. It can't allow for too much of the level map to be shown at any one time.
Yeah,
so,
it's like a pan and scan movie.
Yeah. Sometimes there will be things that you really do need to see to anticipate it with enough time to activate them. And oftentimes getting a jump that's high enough to break through the ground to get to one of these levitating ropes is too far off screen for you to really know until it's too late.
Yeah, or you get it by a complete accident. You jump down and boom, there's a rope flying out of the ground.
They did do a pretty good job, though. Most places where it would be too far off the screen, there'd be a trail of bananas indicating that you should do something leading in that general direction.
Yeah. The flying ropes, I just want to say real quick, I guess it's kind of supposed to be like stereotypical like Indian rope trick, like where
you think that there was actually like thought behind this?
Well, it reminds me of in Super Mario Land, there's like all this like weird kind of Eastern mysticism, or what Westerners would perceive.
Aliens.
What Westerners, and it was made in Japan by Gunpei's team, but how Westerners perceive like ancient Eastern mysticism. There's that in Donkey Kong Land a little bit too, and I'm just getting that from the flying ropes, but it's just weird how like the Game Boy Land titles kind of hew in that direction. I don't know why. If that just I think it's
kind of a case of they use all the obvious archetypes for both Mario and Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo version, so they've got to dig a little deeper for the portables, and a lot of times digging a little deeper means some of these historical archetypes.
I also think Gunpei just liked spacey sci-fi stuff more than Miyamoto, as far as that goes.
To his credit.
To his credit, I mean, the man gave us the goddamn Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
And Galactic Pinball.
Galactic Pinball, the best Metroid game ever made.
Best Metroid game ever. Should have been Galactic Pinball, I'll say, when they announce a new Metroid game. I'll put that in the trivia section on Metroid Wiki on the new game. Trivia. Should have been Galactic Pinball.
Citation needed.
Real quick, also, we mentioned the Kong Helpers. There's only 2 animal buddies in the game, Rambi and Espresso.
Strange choice, Espresso. Rambi is obvious; it's a no-brainer. But
Espresso, they beefed him up a bit. He could now stomp on baddies. He had strong legs. Something that's actually mentioned in his trophy in, I want to say, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where they say he got tougher legs by the time of Donkey Kong Land, like he toughened up or something.
Yeah, so that's been fan-wanked for us. Thank you, Sakurai.
Thank you, Sakurai. You fucked up K. Rool and his bio, but you somehow got Espresso's magic legs right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this was Espresso's last big spotlight before he completely disappeared for several years. Before coming back in Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy Advance in a big way.
A huge way. A way
Espresso's Racing, yeah.
Yeah, it's dominated our character database.
And then a couple months later, he appeared in Banjo Pilot in a cameo. So
this is true.
Yeah. That was a good year for Espresso.
It was the last good year for Espresso.
Yeah, he would have been in Donkey Kong Racing, which we're going to mention Donkey Kong Racing in a bit as well.
Oh, are we? Is there some connective tissue here as well?
There's a whole bunch of.
Oh, I know what it is. Yeah,
of course you know what I even put in notes. Chad's going to want to talk about this.
Yeah, you're right. There's a section of this game that I just absolutely adore. But before we get there, a few more differences between this and
huge
the SNES version.
differences. These are the most renowned differences as far as hardcore Donkey Kong fans go.
The baddies.
The baddies. Donkey Kong Land has some of the most beloved drones, just baddie henchmen in the entire series, and that's because it's the one Donkey Kong Land game to kind of go off the reservation and introduce baddies that are pretty much exclusive to this game, unfortunately. But yeah, new, unique baddies that join the ranks of the returning baddies from Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're same as level names or a lot of information surrounding these handheld titles, even more so than their Super Nintendo versions. There were never any real official names or for these baddies, or you would have to infer them from stage names or whatever Nintendo Power might have said.
There were official stage names for Donkey Kong Land. It's just in the instruction manual.
Right, and so yeah, you even have to go out of your way to figure that one out.
Yeah. The map screens, they don't give you the level title. One Donkey Kong Land game to not do that, but to let you know you got all the bonus stages, they put the exclamation mark jutting out of.
It's actually a lightning bolt.
Is it? I thought it was an exclamation mark.
Yeah, if you look closely at the sprite, it's a lightning bolt that's constantly shining white and black over and over.
See, it looks like an exclamation mark to me.
That would make more sense.
Okay, well,
yeah, it's it's lightning bolt shape ish, but it's a exclamation ish, but yeah, I think it's a bolt.
Couldn't it just be a supercharged exclamation mark? Can't we just split the difference here?
You're starting to pull a Mamechi now.
What do you mean?
Just let me have it. Let it be an exclamation mark.
Come on, guys. Just let me have Donald Duck in the DKU. Come on, guys.
You have a flying pig in this game. Just let me have Scrooge McDuck. Oh, we love you, Mamechi.
So, yeah, there are official names for a lot of these baddies, and I think there's only two where it's really up for debate. So, one of them that we have an official name is Fangfish.
Yeah.
And that's a big honkin' fish.
That's about all you can say about Fangfish. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a honkin' fish.
For some reason, the most new enemies in this game are the aquatic enemies, and I'm not really sure why. But okay.
Yeah, and it's strange because they really didn't need Fangfish. They've got Chomps Jr. in this game.
Yeah.
Which serves much the same function. The only thing Fangfish does differently is sometimes he'll be swimming along and he'll take this really crazy vertical path that he's going so fast if you're in the wrong spot, there's no way for you to avoid it.
Fangfish is also a lot wider than Chomps Jr.
Yeah, I guess it it takes up a bigger space when you're in the narrow coral corridors. But yeah. Functionally, really though, it's kind of the same. Just moves around on a more or less regular path underwater.
Now there's also a smaller fish in the game that's not bite size. The Donkey Kong Country small fish. And there's some debate about what the name of this fish is.
Yeah, and this one is interesting because originally in Donkey Kong Country, there were going to be some, non-drone, just kind of background character, little, I guess, world-building things, much like the butterflies in the jungle stages. You would also have little... what looked like clownfish and angelfish that ultimately wound up in the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, Donkey Kong 64 too also had them.
Yeah, but these fish that really don't have much of a name are essentially the angelfish renders with googly eyes stuck on.
And so Mario Wiki calls them gloop.
That can't be right. That's wrong.
Well,
how do they justify that?
They say in Japan that's what they're called.
Oh, so like garuparu, something like that. Like that's the literal translation.
But of course, we all know that there's a beloved Banjo-Kazooie fish called gloop.
Yeah,
so
that is a character, and we have had characters that share the same name as drones before.
But we try to avoid it whenever we can. Nintendo Power...
we try and avoid it. Yes, this is up to us.
It's like a teacher, If there's two, Michaels, one has to be Michael A, one has to be, Michael K, whatever. But Nintendo Power basically referred to him as Pucka. And quite honestly, I'm not Mario Wiki acknowledges this, but they kind of have some bullshit justification why they're not going with Pucka.
Bullshit justification on Mario Wiki?
I know. Why didn't they just say his name was Elves by way of Milli Vanilli? I think that's a better name.
They should have just called him Fish. Fish.
Fish Bear. Come on, Chad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got my surnames mixed up.
But yeah, Pucka. Pucka suits me just fine.
Yeah, I like Pucka.
Yeah. Now, Mario Wiki also gives a name to a specific underwater drone that we've actually apparently adopted on DK Vine, maybe by accident. I'm not really sure.
Maybe out of lack of anything better.
Yeah, they call him Snapper. In Japan, it's interesting. This is Mario Wiki not being consistent because Snapper is purely conjecture, but there is a Japanese name. And it is, oh my god, it's Furaha?
That sounds like a Japanese pronunciation.
But they say that's a misspelling of the name Flapper in Japan, which was our fandom name for one of the purple parrots in Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 until we got Quawks in our lap, and we changed it to Squawk. Anyway,
Are you following all of this, audience?
I expect there's going to be homework, so pay attention.
Going back to 1995.
Yeah, there will be a quiz next week. So, yeah, Snapper is basically like a sideways clam type thing.
It's like an upside down clam. It's like one of those bivalves that actually uses jet propulsion to project itself around the ocean floor. Only this one just kind of it opens and closes its shell and goes straight up, and it makes a little snapping noise. And then when it gets to the top, it sort of drifts down with its shell open. So
these things could be irritating because they would always hide a Kong letter in a crevice where one is going up and down. So you had to swim in underneath it, get the Kong letter, wait it out, wait till it goes back up, and swim back quickly.
Right. Yeah, I mean they wouldn't give you all that much trouble. They were more of an annoyance than anything. They were a pace setter in the underwater stages.
Keep in mind, there's no end guard at all in the underwater stages, and no underwater attacks, so you kind of had to just wait.
Yeah, and so while they removed your attacks, they also introduced something of not a mini boss, but a pretty hardcore drone character for one stage.
Oh, you're talking about Nemo.
I am talking about Nemo.
In the famous stage Nautilus Chase. And that's one of the few Donkey Kong Land stages I've actually remembered the name of.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those stages you never forget.
Yeah, this was a terrifying stage. This is basically
This is
the
still
Donkey
a terrifying stage, and I recently played this stage on a 3DS, and granted, it's not as terrifying as it used to be, but it's still pretty terrifying.
So here's the difference. It's obviously based off of Croctopus Chase, the Donkey Kong Country stage where you were chased by the octopus drones. But it's very similar to that. You're in coral underwater.
By the way, the coral in this game looks like you're swimming in milk.
Milk?
yeah, because the color scheme. It looks like that scene in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids where the nerdy kid is swimming in the bowl of Cheerios.
Cheerios, yeah.
And he's like, Dad, don't eat me!
Mm-hmm. And Rick Moranis is like, I don't give a fuck. I'm eating these Cheerios.
I'm going to be able to retire from acting from this movie. Yup.
A yup. How did he turn into what is that senator?
Senator Rick Moranis. He's beloved.
No, the southern one, the high up. What is the one that Jon Stewart would always do? The
Lindsey
voice?
Grant. Oh no, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell. Thank you. That was definitely worth bringing the show to a screeching halt to figure out.
Jon Stewart.
Mitch McConnell.
He's not even on TV anymore. We don't have to worry about Jon Stewart.
Actually, he showed up on Colbert last night.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah. I watched it this morning. I've gotten into a routine of waking up about half an hour earlier so that I can watch Colbert on CBS's website in the morning.
Oh, well, I'll have to check that out when we're done recording. Yes.
But anyway, this Nautilus character, or
the
drone
Nemo.
rather, Nemo. The reason that this was so much scarier than Croctopus Chase, which was a relatively easy stage in Donkey Kong Country, was that you really can't see enough of the stage to always know exactly where you need to be fleeing. So you know that there's something giant just behind you with these, crazy tentacles, and it's a really cool looking character, the likes of which we haven't really seen again in a Donkey Kong Country game.
I honestly don't know why they just didn't bring Nemo back for Donkey Kong Country 2. I mean, just go for it. Like, I don't care if Donkey Kong Country Team 2 didn't design him. He's a fucking terrifying creation, and he should be reused.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe there wasn't a place for him necessarily in that game. They didn't have any underwater chases, but
I know, but okay, but he is terrifying, yes, because of the limited screen space on the Game Boy, but also because, as you said, the face full of tentacles. Like Croctopus is just like spun. They weren't that intimidating.
Yeah,
Nemo's, they have like the gyrating, pulsating tentacles, and it's like rah, rah, rah. They chase you.
Another
you
crazy
couldn't
thing,
see it, but I was doing the motion with my fingers.
Right, the Zoidberg thing.
Yeah, right.
Another crazy thing about Nemo's, unlike Croctopus, was that while the Croctopi were just sort of sitting there, clearly awake, and when you get into a certain zone, within a certain zone of them, they activate on their set path. Nemo's they're closed up, no tentacles, no googly eyes. Their shell is sitting there, and when you first go into the stage, you don't even know what they are. You sort of swim up to them, and all of a sudden, he wakes up, and these tentacles shoot out, and there's this angry eye, and now this thing is chasing you, and you go, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
If he didn't kill you in that first moment, you are running for your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Nemo's are like the second most iconic new baddie from Donkey Kong Land. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Swirlwinds. You alluded to them before, but Swirlwinds were found in the temple stages, or one temple stage. Swirlwind Warning, another level I've remembered, and
that's the baddie whose name we derive from the level stage.
Yes, but Swirlwinds are basically tornadoes.
Actually, you know what, Hyle? It's strange. I'm looking at the Donkey Kong Land instruction booklet. I remember the stage being called Swirlwind Warning as well, but no, actually, in World 2, Kremlantis, level 7 is called Swirlwind Storm. Isn't that weird?
I think Nintendo Power mislabeled as Swirlwind Warning.
I swear to God, I remember Swirlwind Warning.
I've got the Donkey Kong Land issue of Nintendo Power right here in front of me. I'm going to investigate this while you talk some more about the classic character, not even character, classic thing, Swirlwind.
Well, no, actually, I'm curious. This brings up a nice little tangent into the hierarchy of Donkey Kong universe, canonization. If we have conflicting level names from two official documents, which one do we give jurisdiction to? The instruction booklet that was contained within the game, or Nintendo Power?
Oh, the instruction booklet, of course.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page there. It just, it could get a little hairy.
It could. Yeah. That sounds like a Donkey Kong Land commercial from Nintendo. It could get a little hairy on the Game Boy.
Grind with the best of them. Donkey Kong Land.
Let's see. Looking through Cramlantis.
Good pod.
Swirlwind
was interesting because it's a tornado, and it but it's not really a tornado. It's just kind of an upside down cylinder that you bounce on.
I always thought it was like a stone tornado, like it was like some sort of sculpture that was designed to resemble a tornado. Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah. And it's not even a cylinder, like I said before. It's actually a cone. I don't know my geometry. No, it's you'd expect tornadoes in a platform game to behave more or less like they did in Tropical Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very strange, one of the stranger departures, aside from the final baddie that I think we're getting to in a minute, in this game. I can't say that I really liked the Swirlwinds. It was a nifty gameplay mechanic. I just think they could have picked something better to represent it than a completely solid tornado shape.
Man, this is weird. Yeah, it's called Swirlwind Storm and Nintendo Power too.
Where did Swirlwind Warning come from?
I don't know, but that's what I've referred to it for years as. Did we just hallucinate that in the shared peyote trip?
I'm just gonna say I learned it from watching you.
Don't always blame me when we get stuff wrong.
No, you just have the clearer memory, so
okay.
I often cede to you on these memory points.
Well, maybe it's just because we both smoked the same bowl when we played Donkey Kong Land, and that's why we share the memory lapse.
Oh yeah, I was a horrendous stoner at age 11.
We shared the same banana bowl, I should say. Well, let's talk about why you're all here. The main event.
Of course.
The best baddie in Donkey Kong Land, and maybe the whole universe. I don't really know. I'm not at liberty to say.
People Magazine's sexiest poor scene of 1995.
Is that a joke we use somewhere?
Yeah, that's from TED Talks.
Ah, yeah, okay.
People Magazine's sexiest poor scene of 1995. Hogwash.
To be fair, like most people, I have not actually watched TED Talks. So
nobody's watched it. YouTube, go to YouTube and search for TED Talks DK Vine.
Yeah, it's you're not going to do it.
They won't do it.
If you haven't done it at this point, you're never going to.
You got 21 minutes free?
Not when PewDiePie's channel is right over there.
Yeah, I know. He has jump cuts. That means it can cut out all the parts where you need to think to get the joke.
My coffee mug is filled with tears tonight. So,
tears and anticipation.
Hogwash, holy fuck, Hogwash. A flying fucking pig.
Yeah, he's a flying pig, a literal flying pig, which it seems kind of out of left field for the handheld team, but we recently learned via Greg Mail's DKC Exposed Twitter exposés.
Yeah, we're going to have to
cover in more detail later.
We're going to have to do a Fetal Days of Donkey Kong Country.
We will not call it that.
Oh, well, we'll see who does the editing of that episode, my friend.
All right, fair enough. But anyway, yeah, it has been revealed that a flying pig baddie was conceptualized for Donkey Kong Country, just never used.
Yeah, and it's funny how Hogwash was actually used by Nintendo Power. I have the cover right here, and it says it's Donkey. It's a render of Donkey Kong swimming in Kremlantis, and I've never seen this render outside of this magazine cover. So I would like to like storm Rare and like steal this render. But I see Nemo's tentacles like off on the side, and a pucka. Or maybe that's a fangfish. A fangfish and a pucker are both on as well. Anyway, it says ACM on Game Boy, Donkey Kong Land, when pigs fly, ... That ...
says it all. Oh man, really gets you to want to read the magazine, doesn't it?
Oh, and in this issue, they go in depth on the video game version of Judge Dredd, starring Sylvester Stallone. So you know you're in for a good time.
That video game was not starring Sylvester Stallone.
The movie it based on was.
Oh, okay. So it's Judge Dredd starring Sylvester Stallone, the video game.
Yeah, the game. And then, of course, they wanted to do a sequel called Judge Dredd, the movie, the video game, the movie.
Mm-hmm. Based on the Broadway play and a novel pushed by Sapphire.
Right. So, Hogwash, is there, I mean, it's a flying pig. He's amazing. Is there anything else we want to say?
No. Functionally, exactly the same as Necky's in the first Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
And it's a flying pig.
Yeah.
And when I named the snow music, I called it Snowy Pig Wings because that's your first introduction to Hogwash.
Snowy Pig. Wow, poetry, just
poetry.
Pure. Why? Yeah, pure. Well, I think you were the poet laureate for the U.S. in 1999, just based on your Donkey Kong Land track listing names. It was gorgeous work.
Yeah, it was between me and Maya Angelou. My entry was that part that's like a cave, only a little higher.
Yeah.
Had I gone with KV, I think I would have clinched it.
Funny enough, her book was originally called Why the Caged Flying Pig Sings. So, had she gone with that, you might have been in the running.
Damn.
So anyway,
another life.
Donkey Kong Land is also the only Donkey Kong Land game, to my knowledge, I can't remember if 3 has any, but that has original compositions that aren't just downgraded chiptunes of the country counterparts.
Yeah, this was, I don't know if this was the first game Graham Norgate composed at Rare. Certainly the first one that I was ever exposed to. There are a lot of really great songs in Donkey Kong Land. That's one of the reasons why I went out of my way to rip it way back when. And I'm sure we'll have put in some of them beneath the entirety of this episode. A couple standouts, of course, Kremlantis. This is the song of Donkey Kong Land. The Kremlantis song, it uses the very limited aural palette of the Game Boy to extraordinary effect. It's eerie. It shows up on an archetype that's at the same time familiar but foreign. It's temple stages, but they're underwater temple stages, and it gives it a completely different vibe. Very, very steeped in history, which is a lot to say for, what's essentially a four-color sprite and a couple of pillars and backgrounds. But I really always felt that there was a lot more going on in Kremlantis than there actually was, in large part due to just how eerie the music is, and it's the same philosophy. He took the same philosophy that David Wise did in the first game, in that it's not going to be cartoony blip bloop blip bloop bloop kind of music, the sort of the traditional Koji Kondo style.
Which is funny because that's how Graham Norgate describes his compositions for Donkey Kong Land.
Yeah, but they're not. I think that's him being humble. They're very good. And Kremlantis is incredible, and one of the most tragic things in my mind about the loss of Donkey Kong Racing, and this is the connection you were alluding to earlier, is that we knew that from the trailer of Donkey Kong Racing, that the pre-rendered thing, that there was going to be a Kremlantis stage, at the very least, if not a whole, themed section of the game.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Racing looked like it was going to be like a vast, like, celebration / Arrested Development-esque self-referential wank session
Right.
for all of Rare's Donkey Kong output up to that point. So, yeah.
Yeah, that and God, to get to hear like an up-tempo racing theme of the Kremlantis theme. Oh, that was why I was freaking out primarily when Donkey Kong Racing was announced, is because Kremlantis! Like, it just looks like a generic underwater stage, and then you realize there are Kremling statue ruins down there.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just talking about it. Kremlantis is brilliant.
It's funny, the song that I always remember from Donkey Kong Land, and everybody thinks I'm nuts, it's the song you first hear when you go into Big Ape City, the skyscraper stages.
Uh-huh.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I know exactly.
Yeah. For some reason, that song is the quintessential song in my head when it comes to big city life.
Really?
Yeah. I could be in Manhattan catching a Broadway show, and in my head, that's what I'm humming.
Yeah, there was also I guess we could maybe talk about some of the new archetypes while we're discussing the music, because the third world chimpanzee clouds, it introduced a few different types of very strange avant-garde level archetypes, one of which is that part that's like a cave, only a little higher. That's not too crazy.
Which is a mountainside. Let's be clear. It wasn't a cave at all.
It looks like a cave. This is another limitation of the Game Boy's graphics.
I know, but for some reason, like that track has like been shared on YouTube with that title, but not shared by you, because other people just from the days of file sharing and Napster, and
right. It's out there now. That's the title.
People were bitching about it in the comments until somebody finally changed the title. They're like, because they're like, this isn't a cave. What are they talking about? Like, not understanding the historical jubilance behind that name. So.
Right. But beyond that, in Chimpanzee Clouds, that's the normal part. You go even higher than the part that's like a cave, only a little higher, and you'll get up to the clouds proper. And this is where things sort of go off the rails. You start to get these weird floating octagons with hearts in the background and tracks flying around. And then there are stages that are constructed entirely out of clouds. And they also have... I guess maybe that's what Graham is thinking of when he talks about his bleeps and bloops. I still think they're very good tracks, the Chimpanzee Clouds ones, but they're certainly less atmospheric than you get with a typical Donkey Kong Country fare.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, and then there were also some unused songs, I believe, right?
Yeah. There are two unused songs. One of them sounds like it would have been for a third Cloud style stage. It might have been another Big Ape City stage, but there are so many Big Ape City archetypes already. I don't think they would have tried to cram yet another one in there. I mean, doesn't Big Ape City have? It's got like suburban backyards. It's got apartment walk-ups. There's a flying blimp.
Where are you getting suburban backyards?
Isn't that the one? Oh no, that's more of a construction site. I'm thinking the ones that have like those picket fences.
Yeah, that's the construction site.
That's a construction site. Yeah.
Yeah, but Big Ape City is composed entirely of new archetypes, though. The only world in Donkey Kong Land to do so.
Yeah, so it's construction site. It's like urban apartment fire escapes and stuff.
Yeah, and then there's the blimp.
And then the blimps. Yeah, I doubt it would have been for a fourth one of those. But yeah, Big Ape City was pretty well covered. There's also, strangely enough, when you get to K. Rool at the end of the game, he's treated like the boss of Big Ape City. There is no fourth boss before the final confrontation. Maybe that's where the confusion arose, but all four bosses in the game, including K. Rool, have the same music. And that's what I dubbed K. Rool's acid punk,
but which actually came back in Blast Core.
Yes, yeah. In the what was the blastcore stage?
Plateau.
Jade Plateau. Yeah, Graham Norgate, who also composed blastcore, essentially reused the boss theme from Donkey Kong Land a little more up tempo and in a more appropriate style for blastcore.
It's a good song, though.
It's a very solid song. But besides that, there was also a song hidden on the cartridge that rippers have, not me, but people who do ROM dumps have subsequently sussed out, which is there's a K. Rool theme. To be honest, it doesn't have any references to the original K. Rool theme, although that's used earlier in the game on the pirate ship levels. But it's not that good of a song, that one. I think they might have maybe it was just a quality thing. It was just already on the cartridge and they left it there because there weren't size concerns. But yeah, and it might also be because I'm just used to hearing K. Rool over K. Rool's Acid Punk. But I don't know. I don't miss it that much, having heard it.
Right, yeah. A world without K. Rool's Acid Punk is not a world I want to live in.
Well, you'd still get to experience it with Hard Hat and Wild Sting.
But then it wouldn't be K. Rool's Acid Punk.
That's true. It'd be Giant Clam's Acid Punk.
All right, well, let's discuss the worlds. Thankfully, there's only 4 of them. But these worlds, the worlds of Donkey Kong Land are... This is where the game really gets close to my heart, because somehow in 4 worlds, Rare was able to really expand the world of Donkey Kong, and all of these worlds somehow mean so much in both canon and our fanon that they have an importance that I don't think they were ever intended to have, but they hold so much together for us, and I love them all to bits. So the first world is actually a familiar world. It's it's Congo Jungle, but the actual world title is Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon Ahoy,
and Ahoy, by the way, has an exclamation mark.
Does, which means we've got all the bonus stages already in this world. So this is a weird world. This is a hybrid world of jungle stages, pirate ship stages, which, by the way, the pirate ship stages predate Donkey Kong Country 2 here. They're different in style than Donkey Kong Country 2, so it's not like we got a actual preview of DKC 2 here. These are originally created for this game, as far as the graphics go.
Yeah, although they might have been in collusion a little bit, because some of the mechanics, though, are new and are used virtually identically in Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah, a little bit.
The fact that, in Donkey Kong Country, when you were dealing with ropes or vines, it was only ever one at a time. They didn't have these grid-based nets that you can climb on and climb horizontally as well, much like you could in Donkey Kong Jr. But that's here for the first time. So, and it's when I was playing this earlier, I was showing it to Janelle, who's not that familiar with Donkey Kong Land, but of course knows DKC2 inside and out. And she was like, "Wait, what are you playing? Is that like Donkey Kong Country 2? Because I was on one of the rigging levels in Land, but it's Donkey Kong." And she was completely unfamiliar with that visual of Donkey Kong climbing horizontally. Yeah, it's cool. I think there was probably a little bit of cross planning between the two. It's just a little too close to be coincidence.
Okay. Well,
but I think that's cool, though. It shows that it suggests that there might have been more planning than such a bizarre title would lead you to believe.
Yeah. But can I just say, for the record, fuck the rigging stage with the slippas coming down the ropes? Fuck that so hard.
Yeah, I guess the slippas aren't new drones themselves, but the way they're used here sucks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's difficult. It's never really unfair, because you can always see them with enough time to get out of the way. But yeah, they basically spiral vertically down the rigging, repeatedly in most cases, and you have to time it out like any obstacle going up and down a climbable thing. But it's it's a little unexpected. It takes you off guard.
Yeah. There's also snow stages in this world, which I mean, I guess if it's like a Mount Kilimanjaro type thing, where the rationale is, if you're up high enough, you can have snow in what's ostensibly a jungle. I
guess there's 3 snow stages in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are only there are only 9 stages. A whole third of this world is snow.
Yeah, so, okay, sure. It's a little weird. I guess they just wanted snow stages, and this is the only place. Well, they could have put them in Monkey Mountains. I don't really... whatever,
Doesn't matter.
It is what it is. But, yeah, so, as I said, this world kind of served as a bridge between Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2, because I don't know about you, but when I got to the Gangplank Galleon in Donkey Kong Country, I was kind of disappointed that wasn't a full world. I wanted, just regular levels on this pirate ship.
Yeah, I wonder if if it was intended to be a world, and then they needed to release the game.
Actually, I believe we've determined yes that is the case.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Donkey Kong Land picks up the pieces. Like the Gangplank Galleon is still docked off the Congo Jungle Beach, and you could make the justification it's been there since Donkey Kong Country, and it felt like, oh, good, we're getting a couple levels that, we were deprived of in the original game. And then, Donkey Kong Country 2 comes out several months later and gives you the whole world and really scratches that itch like never before. But, yeah, and the boss of the Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon Ahoy is a boss called Wild Sting. And this is, basically, it's a Flotsam from Donkey Kong Country 2. But we know that Flotsams were also a planned enemy for Donkey Kong Country. So this was more of an asset for Donkey Kong Country that was never used and promoted to a boss, and then was turned into a drone in Donkey Kong Country 2.
Right. Flotsams have had a long storied history, and that's before the baddie confusion with the Banjo-Kazooie inner tube baddie.
Right. So, this is kind of both using an element for Donkey Kong Country that got cut, and also serving as a nice preview for Donkey Kong Country 2, in that the boss of a drone species was actually used before the drone species itself.
Yeah, it's kind of nifty. We get that again with the next boss, and them eventually cropping up in Donkey Kong Country Returns, but we'll get there in a second.
Not the next boss. You mean... The boss...
2 bosses beyond.
Yeah, because we got to go to Kremlantis, buddy.
Oh, yeah. But Wild Sting, you fought him on the pirate ship. He basically jumped up out of the water and tried to stab you in the heart with his stingray, and you just had to jump on him a couple times.
That's right, because Steve Irwin...
You almost said Urkel, didn't you?
No, Steve Irwin, but didn't he steal, blood diamonds or something? Or what happened in the Season 1 finale of the Vine Donkey Kong audio program?
I have no earthly idea what happened in that show.
Nobody does.
None of us do. We could listen to it over and over and still couldn't tell you what the hell happens in that damn podcast.
So much was happening and none of it made a lick of sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kremlantis?
Kremlantis.
All right, I'm going to go take a pee break. You rave about Kremlantis for 10 minutes, okay?
Sure thing. No, Kremlantis, are you really going to take a pee break?
It would be, for comedic effect, it would be funny, but considering nobody can see me, I would have to add sound effects later, me pissing and going, oh!
Yeah, the thing is, speaking of penile activities, I already blew my load on Kremlantis when talking about the music, so I don't have too much more to contribute other than it's a hybrid temple world and underwater world, and you sort of segue into the proper choral stages by way of these of this Kremlantis type stage where you're swimming underwater in the temples, and I don't know, it's cool in the same way that you remember in Donkey Kong Country 3 Game Boy Advance when they had was it Pacifica?
Yeah,
the extra world, and one of them was an underwater a redwood tree.
Yeah,
and that was cool because it sort of played out like a ROM hack. This is like that, only there's like this historical subtext to it. It just fleshes out the world so much and the music is so great. I just can't help but be sucked into Kremlantis far more than it's probably deserving.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's one new archetype, and that's, as you said, the Sunken Temple. Mm-hmm. But then they've also the regular temples from Donkey Kong Country are back, but they've actually added a weird detail, a shield and swords.
Oh yeah, like just this background element that's completely inconsequential to the gameplay. It's essentially the same thing as the pillars that have the Kremling heads on them.
Yeah. So I just like that they added that small little thing. Why not?
Yeah.
So Kremlantis, as you said, the historical subtext is there, and we read way too much into it, but it actually is like the linchpin for the entire historical subtext of the Donkey Kong series, as far as the relation with the Kremlings go. Because why does Donkey Kong Island have all of these Kremling temples on it? And then in Donkey Kong Land, you go offshore into this sunken civilization called Kremlantis, and you realize that the Kremlings had this whole ancient empire that spanned beyond Crocodile Isle, on Donkey Kong Island, and beyond.
Well, but when you're first playing it, you don't even know about Crocodile Isle, or at least in 95.
That's right. Well, at this point, 95, you didn't. Yeah. So, yeah, at this point, like, this is the first inkling that... Because at this point we thought Kremlings were just like native to Donkey Kong Island, and now you realize they had this whole empire that's like kind of collapsed. Like, what's going on here? Yeah.
And then there used to be, presumably, Kremlantis represented the land bridge between Crocodile Isle and Donkey Kong Island, and that's how the ancient that was their northwestern passage that allowed them to build a tire factory on DK Island.
But the thing is, you can say we're reading way too much into it, but this is like not only not ever contradicted by Rare, but it's actually further elaborated on, because Donkey Kong Country 3 has the Northern Cremisphere. Nothing to do with Kremlings, it's bear territory, so why is it called the Northern Cremisphere? Kremlin. This was like the northernmost territory of the Kremlings during the Kremlantis Empire. Why not?
Yeah, I'm thinking that, the Kremlantis Empire, probably it likely didn't have pirate ships, but they were assumedly seafaring of some sort, or at least after a while their civilization got advanced enough to go out exploring other islands. And if we're going to say the Northern Cremisphere is an island and not on the back of Donkey Kong Island, then yeah.
and they were probably rivals of the Atlantean Empire from Banjo-Tooie.
Good point as well. I guess the Atlantean Empire, that one is in the Isle of Hags, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's canonically Atlantis. So
that's right. It is the lost city of Atlantis.
So I love that the Kremlings had this parallel civilization, and then the Kongs rose up with the Tiki Tak tribe and kind of overthrew the Kremlings, along with probably an alliance with the Bears. And so the Bears got Northern Cremisphere, the Kongs got what became Donkey Kong Island, and the Kremlings were pushed back to Crocodile Isle.
Briefly to talk about the Atlanteans in Banjo-Tooie, didn't we decide that because they have statues of the mermaid from DK64, that's what the Atlanteans evolved into after their society sank, kind of like Futurama style?
Either that or they were allies with the mermaid people. Because, remember, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze also introduces yet another underwater civilization, and I've speculated that's what was the underwater civilization of the mermaids as seen in Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, really? What leads you to that?
Because it is an active, it is built for underwater use. Like, the tunnels are all underwater, and electrical, like the electrical systems that's powered by lightning. It's
really safe for an underwater society.
They're still active. So I'm thinking that this civilization was built for beings that already lived underwater. It's not like Atlantis was just a human civilization that was sunk. Like, they had bathhouses and shit.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that's where the mermaids were from. And so I've got this shit in my head, and I write about it daily on Facebook too. So
I know you did a series a while back. I think it was the Spiritual Sunday one.
Yes.
Yeah, your Sunday of spirituality.
Your Sunday morning shot of spirituality. Come on, Chad.
Right. I'm sorry.
Trademark.
Yeah, you've got the branding down. In that series, you did a whole run about the mermaids and all this, and I think I want to say it was one of the Platonic guys. I linked to the Facebook, and they're like, wow, you guys are thorough. I can't remember who it was, but I could only respond, you have no idea. Because something came up about the banjo, about how who we call Pearl, the mermaid from DK64, was reused for those statues in Banjo-Tooie.
Which wasn't sexual in any way, like we weren't making a pearl necklace joke. She literally lost her pearls.
I never would have even thought that. Would you? What?
Because you're like, Hyle, why'd you make a semen reference back in 1999? And I'm like, Chad, I didn't.
I never said that. That's...
you said it with your eyes, Chad. Okay. You said it with your eyes.
You're right. So... I forgot how we got... Kremlantis. It's a good world, isn't it?
No, but from this one world, we can infer so much about the Kremlin backstory, the Kong backstory. I mean, and this is only expanded with each game and each little new nugget of information we get. And it's all fanon, but it holds up so well, so much better than most fanon.
Yeah, it's remarkable how well it holds up. I think that a lot of that though is due to the fact that we were trying to construct or connect the dots here, what we were given. Some of it they were reusing a lot of assets, which really aided in us filling in the connective tissue. But also, a lot of it is the fact that when we build these theories, we try and take a logical approach first. So
yeah.
A lot of times, when the developers are world building, they're taking a similar approach, so it lines up.
Right, but goddamn, we would have seen Kremlantis in Donkey Kong Racing. I made my peace with the buyout, especially in light of the Rare Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about Sea of Thieves. St. Phil Spencer is very, very supportive of Rare, and they've got a crackerjack team over there right now. But the one thing I still lament and mourn is Donkey Kong Racing.
Yeah, well, we're not going to see it. I'm skeptical that there was even anything to see on that game. I think it was just the pre-rendered trailer and what concept art has been leaked out.
I know, but all the same, god damn it. like they should have never showed us that. It was just such a... No, I take that back. I mean...
I'm glad they showed it, but there it is taunting me on the back of my GameCube box for eternity.
All right, well, let's move onward, shall we? By the way, I should point out that it was my theory, and I think you adopted the theory, and then this theory was later supported inadvertently in games, that the worlds of Donkey Kong Land, obviously the Congo Jungle takes place in the deeper part of the Congo Jungle than you explored in Donkey Kong Country, and then Gangplank Galleon Ahoy, or Gangplank Galleon, not Ahoy, sorry, Force of Habit at this point, Gangplank Galleon's off the coast. But then these other worlds are offshore islands, if you will. So there's Kremlantis, Monkey Mountains, and let's go to Monkey Mountains.
Well, World 3 is called Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds.
Yes, and
much like the first world, they crammed them together. I wonder if there were originally going to be 6 worlds, and they just had to start combining a few. Maybe that might account for why there are so many snow stages in the first world.
That's a good theory. I mean, they made it all fit remarkably well, so,
And they did a cool thing. By the way, we mentioned the map screens earlier, and one thing that they do here that I was impressed that they did on the Game Boy, of course it was in the SNES, is that the map screens have multiple screens to them. It's not just one static, grid that DK is moving around. Like Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds, there are 2 fully rendered Game Boy screens of map screen.
Oh yeah.
So Yeah, I always liked that. It always made the worlds feel a lot bigger. The fact that even the maps are unnecessarily large. I mean, there's no real reason for it, other than the fact they want you to feel like you're traversing a world.
Right. But these maps are still better than the maps in Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah. Well, no, that's unfair. That's unfair, isn't it? I think it's the problem with Returns is just that you're navigating them with a token.
Yeah, and that's such a huge black mark that I'm going to completely give the win to Donkey Kong Land.
All right, I'm willing to give the win to Donkey Kong Land in almost every case.
They redeemed themselves with Tropical Freeze, so I'm not like just being like anti-retro or like blindly pro-rare. I'm just saying the fucking token ruined it all.
Yeah, it did. It took you out of it. It took you out of it, but
it was just so un-Donkey Kong Country. Like as much as like retro got right with that game, they completely whiffed it there.
But they learned from their mistakes.
They learned because fans complained about it for 4 years.
All right, don't take all the credit. You know, they probably had some independent ideas that were the same as the ones fans were bitching about.
Yeah, but they used our font too, so.
I've actually started to see the jungle font crop up in a lot more places. I don't know that
we used it first.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so
Monkey Mountain, Chimpanzee Clown. By the way, ampersand. An ampersand is used in this world title. For fans of punctuation, should be interesting. Also, strangely, now that I'm looking at the instruction booklet, World 1 is not. What did you call it? Based on the Nintendo Power title?
Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon Ahoy.
Not quite. In the and that's what I remember as well. This is another Swirlwind warning. World 1 in the Donkey Kong Land instruction booklet is just called Gangplank Galleon Ahoy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
with the exclamation mark.
Looking in my Nintendo Power and skipping back through the Judge Dredd walkthrough,
he is above the law.
Yeah. What the fuck? Gangplank Galleon Ahoy.
Does it not have Congo Jungle in there either?
It's got to have it here somewhere, because I...
Where are these things coming from?
What?
There's just this apocrypha surrounding Donkey Kong Land that we have bought into.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
This is bizarre. I'm questioning everything now.
But we shared these delusions, right?
Yes, seriously. I remember that as well from somewhere.
No. Was this on Rareware? Like,
no, they didn't get into this level of detail about Donkey Kong Land. I think on Rareware, weren't the lands all just covered on one page?
Yeah, but I swear this was like somewhere official. And like permeated in my brain. Are you sure it's nowhere in the instruction manual?
I don't want to do a deep dive here, but
no, this is of vital importance, Chad.
Okay. Just before it lists out all the level names, there's a section called New Areas. There, and listed in these new areas are Kremlantis, Big Ape City, the Gangplank Galleon, and Chimpanzee Clouds. Then you turn the page, and you start looking at the worlds with the level names and the world names. World 1, Gangplank Galleon Ahoy. World 2, Kremlantis. World 3, Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Cloud. World 4, Big Ape City.
I don't know anything anymore.
Yeah, I am similarly speechless. This is weird. Well, in the interest of not belaboring the point, let's just talk about Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds with the ampersand all crammed together.
All right, well, yeah, okay. Wow. All right, so
you're shaking. I can tell.
I thought I knew this game so well.
Well, look, in fairness, the names are only in the instruction booklet. They're not reinforced by the game itself, so it's easy to get hazy on them.
That is true, yeah. And it should be noted that Monkey Mountain is not referred to in plural in the name, but in Nintendo Power, whenever they're talking about it, they call it Monkey Mountains.
Yeah, this one is Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds.
Yeah, but in the actual text of Nintendo Power, they do call it Monkey Mountains. So anytime I refer to it as such, that is backed up somewhere in Nintendo Power.
Sure, but we defer to the instruction booklet.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. So there were a lot of interesting uses of the cloud stage in Monkey Mountains. Once you get past the part that's like a cave, only a little higher.
Well, yeah, the two archetype, the new archetypes are mountainsides, the part that's like a cave, only higher, and clouds. So,
well, but there's really there are two core archetypes even within the cloud style. There are the ones where the platforms themselves are constructed out of clouds and everything is cloud-like. And then there are ones that are a bit more surrealist. These are like the aforementioned giant octagons with that look like they're covered in heart-shaped wrapping paper. Just like very, very weird visuals. And they used some cool mechanics as well in some of these stranger-style sky stages. One of them was kind of a trick-track-trek style level. That one's called Track Attack, where it's sort of a linear path and you stay on it. The other one was called Sky High Caper, and this one, I don't know if you remember this, but basically you're on this track and there are segments of the background that are completely devoid of pixels, and your little platform is moving up, down, left, and right in that order. And every time it hits a wall, it switches directions. Mm-hmm. So you have to, and when you jump and land on it, it also switches directions. So you have to like manage your jumps timed with when the track is hitting a wall to navigate the entire world, like floating with no other platforms around you. It's really difficult.
Do you know about the secret exit in that level?
I don't recall it. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so at the very beginning of that stage, instead of jumping on the platform or whatever, like immediately jumping on the platform, just jump off the cloud and like kind of fall underneath it, and you'll hit a secret exit, and the level will be over.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't. Yeah, because there were no divergent paths in Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee.
No,
Cloud.
it's just like a shortcut if the level is too. I don't know if it was why it's there. If it's even if it's just like a bug or glitch or something. But if it's just too hard and frustrating for you, you can just skip over it.
Well, this is one of those stages speedrunners would hate, so it might just be in there for them.
There weren't speedrunners back in '95.
There are no Donkey Kong Land speedrunners. We need to campaign for the next AGDQ.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, any like, well, we didn't even talk about Giant Clam back in Kremlantis, Chad. I just realized.
Yeah, that's probably because it's a giant clam.
It's a clambo that shoots pearls at you. Not a seaman reference, and I don't know. Like you have this like. You have to hit this.
There are other, like, in the corners, there are these other clams that sort of disappear.
Yeah.
But they ricochet his pearls off. So you have to get down in front of them, let him shoot the pearl at you, move out of the way, let it bounce off those other tinier clams, and knock back into giant clam. That's giant clam.
Well, there's some debate about the name of a giant clam, too.
God, really?
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, somebody, okay, never mind. On Mario Wiki, for the longest time, it was known as Colosso Clambo.
Really?
And they said it's conjecture, we don't have an official name. In Nintendo Power, the issue I have in my hand, they call him Giant Clam. And somebody finally changed it to Giant Clam in Mario Wiki and referenced that issue of Nintendo Power.
That is fabulous, because here on the instruction booklet, whereas Gangplank Galleon Ahoy named its boss stage Wild Sting Fling, here this one's just called Seabed Showdown, so there's no indication.
Yeah. So we win.
As per usual.
We may have been wrong about Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon and Ahoy, which is a hilarious name, and it retroactively should be called that. We were right about Giant Clam, motherfuckers. We were right about Giant Clam.
Take that to the grave. Giant Clam and the Tip Top Suite.
Anyway, sorry. Back to Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds.
What is the lifestyles that are famous? The caviar wishes and what's that whole spiel? The champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
Yeah.
Monkey Mountain and Chimpanzee Clouds. Yeah, the boss stage is called Mad Mole Holes. Lads.
Lads.
But the
Innuendo.
boss itself is named Hard Hat.
Yes, Hard Hat the Mole. And this was another planned character for Donkey Kong Country that I kind of got repurposed for Donkey Kong Land. At least the concept did.
Where is that one of the ones from DKC Exposed as well?
No. This character it was not actually designed for Donkey Kong Country, but in the possible Animal Buddies like concept sheet. One of them was
I'm sorry.
mole.
I meant early DK, not DKC Exposed.
Yeah. No, nobody got paid for this.
Right, that's a completely different thing. We should, but one day we should try and get Josh Wolf on the show and do a DKC Exposed retrospective.
DKC Exposed.
That would be amazing. He's actually a pretty big star these days.
Is he?
Yeah, he has his own late night talk show on CMT.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not one to talk. We put the show on YouTube, and it gets 200 views on YouTube. So
well, he also is in like the hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers. I mean, he's a minor celebrity.
Is he related to MF Wolf?
He might be. That's our in. Mitchell, get on it.
So anyway, Hard Hat was one of the concepts that they designed for Donkey Kong Country that was never used, and maybe the Donkey Kong Land guys pinched this idea.
Yeah, it's possible. One thing that I do like about Hard Hat is that his color scheme on the renders that we've seen. Obviously, it's black and white in game. But he's a mole with a yellow hard hat with a light on it, and there are hard hats that come in all different colors, but that's the style that was established when mole baddies popped up again in Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I have to think that it was a direct preference to this.
Well, we know Retro played all 3 Donkey Kong Country games, all 3 Donkey Kong Land games, and bizarrely enough, Banjo-Kazooie for inspiration for their Donkey Kong Country. So, yeah, I'm sure this is where they got the idea for their moles.
Yeah, it's nice. Hard Hat's a good boss, too. How'd you feel about
he's not
this
bad.
fight?
Yeah, it's basically Whack-A-Mole.
Yeah, it's Whack-A-Mole with construction safety equipment being flinged at you.
Yeah. I like Hard Hat, and it's one of those original Donkey Kong Land creations. He's not like an upsized Donkey Kong Country character. It's his own thing. There weren't any drones of him, at least in any rare Donkey Kong games. So completely original boss.
Yeah, that's really the only original boss in this game.
Yeah, and when you think about it, in any of Rare's Donkey Kong games, minus maybe Belcha and
yeah, the ones that aren't giant.
Yeah. Bleak, and maybe
Chaos.
Chaos. Yeah, although I consider Chaos a rung above since he's essential to the plot. I guess arguably Cudgel, even though he's just a recolored Clubba, but all the same, they're not based on any smaller Kremlings.
Yeah, and I guess would you say that Arik is a giant Nid?
Yes, I would.
Okay. I would indeed say that.
No, actually, I believe.
If only to reinforce my earlier point.
No, I've thought of him as a giant Nid before, and I think that's the implication.
Okay. So then we move on to Big Ape City.
Well, no. Let me finish one thing about Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds.
Certainly.
So, interestingly enough, as I mentioned in our Tropical Freeze episodes last season, yeah, there's a new element of fanon bullshit when it comes to chimpanzee clouds. Secret seclusion in Tropical Freeze, and
yes.
the floating island in Donkey Kong 64 that you enter a fungus forest in.
The one that you have to blast up to.
Yeah. All fundamentally could be chimpanzee clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And
Aren't they sort of in a similar place off the coast of Donkey Kong Island?
yeah, they would have to be. So it all kind of lines up. And, even Secret Seclusion kind of has that weird bullshit kind of wacky design as Chimpanzee Clouds does. So
what are we saying? The unobtainium in the soil has crazy gravitational electromagnetic properties or something?
no, Snowman magic. Done.
Oh, okay. Wait, Snowmad magic?
Yeah.
All this time?
They scouted out all these islands beforehand. And
okay, this is where you start to abandon logic and just get into speculative narrative. Like what leads you to believe the Snowmads have ever been to Donkey Kong Island before the events of Tropical Freeze?
Secret Seclusion is clearly based in Snowmad architecture.
What? No, there's a bunch of giant koi statues.
Yeah, they're fishermen.
That's not... No, that is a bridge too far, sir. Why are you bullying me? I just want to talk about fish statues.
well, nonetheless, Monkey Mountains is actually interesting, though. Because I do believe Monkey Mountains are where any time you see like a ski or snow resort in usually a cameo game, like in the Mario Kart series or in Donkey Konga 2, there's one. I believe it's Monkey Mountains and not Gorilla Glacier. One reason is because Gorilla Glacier seems a much harsher environment that wouldn't be conducive for ski lodges. And two, because Gorilla Glacier blew up and is now a volcano, and every time that appears in a Mario Kart game, we can't say it's Gorilla Glacier anymore, so it might as well be Monkey Mountains.
Fair enough.
Okay, so...
It is 1:30 a.m. I'm running out of my argumentative spirit.
Oh, this is when I get my second win, man. I'm ready to discuss Donkey Kong till the break of dawn.
All right, so let's continue discussing Big Ape City.
Big Ape City. Now, this is you can talk about Kremlandis all you want, Chad, and yes, Kremlandis is very important, but Big Ape City is just as important, equally as important. But what this does, Big Ape City, and this is a world full of new archetypes, as we said, city buildings / apartments, construction sites, and blimps. But Big Ape City serves a very important function in the franchise.
Yes.
And
it actually recontextualizes the arcade.
Yes. Because Rare, they kind of massively retconned the entire Donkey Kong mythos, if you can even call what existed before Donkey Kong Country mythos. And I'm sure arcade purists listening to this, your I Am Gibbons, your sometimes M Dogs, and other people in the DK Vine forum and elsewhere will
that aren't just random collections of phrases that you just said.
Right.
You should stress that these are forum people, and
people.
You're not just like naming nouns.
I'm not just having a stroke right now. Arcade purists will probably disagree with me, but Rare pretty much severely retconned the arcade storyline, and there's a couple different versions of the arcade storyline, and I don't know which one is considered more valid than the other. There's one where like Donkey Kong is Mario's abused pet or something. It's like weird, but
yeah. And there was one that doesn't the Donkey Kong Goes Home EP, the vinyl record, have lyric references to him being from a circus or a zoo. It was a zoo.
Yeah, something like he's an escaped zoo animal.
Yeah, there's a song that's like "No More Zoo for You," and there's a part where they start spoken word and they say, "Donkey Kong, we really miss you. We want you to come back to the zoo."
Was it William Shatner doing it? Was it one of his spoken word albums?
If only.
Donkey Kong, we really miss you.
If only we could come back to the zoo.
Yeah. You're always so much better at the mimicking than I am.
I wasn't trying to one-up you. I just wanted to join in the fun.
I know. I always set you up for it, though. I'm like, I'm going to do a subpar impression, and I'm going to have the master come in behind me. mop it up.
Set up the tee, and I'll knock it, maybe for a double. An infield ground rule, perhaps.
That's a sports reference. What are you doing?
I don't know. I don't think it made logistical sense within the context of baseball. It was just a rule.
Was it baseball? I thought maybe it was like croquet or something.
Croquet, I believe that's pronounced cricket.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought cricket was another thing.
Yeah, that was a joke. It was a joke because I don't know sports.
Well, I don't either, so I was really legitimately worried.
Oh.
I was worried like maybe croquet wasn't a thing.
Yeah. This whole time I've been looking at cricket and wondering where all the mallets are.
And I was like, first Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon Ahoy, now this? Swirlwind Warning? My ass. What is Whirlwind Warning from? God damn it! Okay. Calm down, Hyle. Breathe. You can talk about this with your therapist next week. It's fine. Breathe.
Yeah,
Okay.
You might want to pay for an extra long session.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever the arcade story was, Rare's version of Donkey Kong, their vision of Donkey Kong, is pretty much, in my opinion, incompatible with the pre-existing arcade storylines. Like, Cranky's pretty much well settled on Donkey Kong Island. There's this implied history here. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could ever say he was a zoo gorilla or he was like Mario's slave, besides what we saw in Donkey Kong Jr. Plus, Donkey Kong Jr. took place in the jungle primarily, so like whatever city Donkey Kong Arcade took place in had to be pretty close to a jungle.
Oh, shut the fuck up, Hyle. Real quick. This is more important than whatever you're saying. I know where Swirlwind Warning came from.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah. So I was just randomly thumbing through this as you're talking, this instruction booklet. On the baddies page, they're listing out the new baddies. They've got Hogwash the Flying Pig. That's what they call him here. I guess that's his full title. With
his Christian name.
His Christian name. Hogwash the Flying Pig. Nemo, Fangfish, Hard Hat, and then for some reason, Swirlwind Warning. But I don't think that's the baddie's name. I just think they were confusing their convention because the paragraph that describes him says, the Swirlwind can either help or hinder Kong's progress depending on how you approach it.
That's weird.
Yeah, so that's where Swirlwind Warning
came
from.
That's where I thought it was a stage name at some point, and I mixed it up in my head.
It's just the description. It's the title of the description of the baddie Swirlwind on the baddies page for some reason.
Wow. Okay. Well, I feel less insane now. So thank you.
Right. I was also going crazy over this one.
Okay. Now, if we can only get to the bottom of Congo Jungle, I think that was just me adding that in my head. Probably. Well, it takes place in the Congo Jungle, so it's not just Gangplank Galleon. And somewhere along the way, this became like historical fact in my brain.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt the
No,
Big Ape City,
I feel much better, and I know croquet is a thing now too. I feel smart. I feel like a smart one again. I am not a simpleton. I don't belong upstate in the place where they're gonna give me a lobotomy like JFK's sister.
Yeah, no, you belong down in the bustling urban metropolis that is Big Ape City.
Bum, 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 bum. So basically, when you think about it, the arcade storyline makes no sense in context with itself. So what Rare does is say, okay, there's a city right off Donkey Kong Island, Big Ape City, and actually Donkey Kong 94, the last game of the arcade era, if you want to call it, just a few months before Donkey Kong Country came out, had Big City. That was what they called the city in that game where the original arcade game took place. So Rare, being the clever wordsmiths that they are, thought they could do a play on the Big Apple and have Big Ape City.
Is that what the intention is?
I am 92.7% sure.
That's a very specific percentage, but
I'm a very specific guy.
The fact that you went down to the 10th of a percent tells me that you're more confident in this than most people. So let's go with it.
It's all about selling the confidence, Chad.
It really is.
That
confidence
is
through specificity.
That
You've
is
done the math.
That is the art of the deal, Trump 2016. So yeah, it makes sense that like this is actually an ape-built city, and some of you are sitting at home and you're going to argue this. Why would the Kongs have a city? You know, they're nature-dwelling creatures who build everything out of wood and barrels and bananas.
Well, the ones we know are
right. I like that they have this sprawling metropolis just off the coast where it doesn't actually intrude on their jungles, but it's there if they want a taste of the big city life.
And I think a good indication that this is a Kong city, much in the way of how we figured out that the juice factory world from Tropical Freeze was actually an oink-based jungle, is that there's concept art.
Yes.
Yes. A Kong. What did we wind up calling him? Yuppie Kong? City Kong?
There's a lot of disputed names for him. A lot of people prefer Hat Kong, which I hate.
Yeah.
There's City Kong. Some people prefer that. Commuter Kong, I think, is the one I like to go by. And Yuppie Kong is another. And
yeah, but you want it to end on like an IE sound, don't you? You know, Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, Candy, Yuppie. Commuter. Commuter is like Redneck Kong.
Yeah, I know, but he's in good company then, because he's another non-canonical, almost canonical Kong.
No one is in good company when they're with Redneck Kong.
Well, plus, they make a good pair, though. I mean, think about it. Like, you got city, you got country. Like, you know, I want a team-up game with the two of them, and we can enact the Pepito Kong rule finally.
At long last.
Yeah.
You hear that, indie developers of the world?
Pepito Kong can actually be a third Kong you unlock. He can be their Mexican equivalent.
Their non-union Mexican equivalent?
Yeah.
He's the Senor Spielbergo of Kongs.
Also, during the 2012 election, another name that cropped up for him was Bane Capital Kong. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the implication is, definitely this is a Kong city, and it was kind of reestablished in Donkey Konga 2, because in that game, from the Congo jungle, you can see two offshore islands. One is a mountain, one is a city. Monkey Mountain, Big Ape City.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would go along with that. It lines up well. Also, there's a giant fucking blimp with the letters DK on them.
Yeah, in the instruction manual, it says that's how they reach Big Ape City. Like, they traveled to it by blimp. So
from Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Cloud.
Yeah, and I think that shows that it's close to Donkey Kong Island, but it's offshore. It's like it's its own separate island. And Donkey Konga 2 confirms it. It's the only good thing Donkey Konga 2 ever gave us. So.
Wait, hang on. Where is it? Oh yeah, travel by Zeppelin to Donkey Kong's favorite stomping ground. Oh no. Oh, Hyle.
What?
Oh no.
What?
Okay. Here's the description for Big Ape City, and let me stress that yes, it does call it Big Ape City in the title, but here's the description from the instruction booklet. Travel by Zeppelin to Donkey Kong's favorite stomping ground, Big City.
Okay, but
The gears are turning, folks.
No. I already said that in Donkey Kong 94 it's called Big City.
Wait, in what? Donkey Kong Country 4? Oh, Donkey Kong 94.
It's called Big City. So,
but you're saying that this is the same area as in Donkey Kong 94?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't catch that part of what you said, but okay, then that's remarkable because at some point in writing this instruction booklet, they either overlooked that or they were specifically citing the world from Donkey Kong 94. That's crazy.
Yeah, but Big Ape City, I mean, it's in the title there, and it's what Nintendo Power calls it, so it
also,
wins
it goes on, the sight of that familiar skyline might bring back fond memories, but don't waste your time sightseeing when there are Kremlings around. Fond memories. Huh. Yeah, I guess so.
Yep.
All right, so Big City, Big Ape City, same place.
And like Donkey Kong Country Returns, like open this can of worms where people think the arcade games now took place in the factory. No.
I mean, there was, what was it? It was 50M, wasn't it?
75.
75M showed up in the background.
Or maybe it was 50M in the background. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. It was. I think it was the first.
But
stage.
I don't know.
I don't know. You can't really work your way around that one, though, can you?
There could be an identical piece of construction blueprint,
right? But now you're bending over backwards to invalidate something that was a clear intention depicted in an in-game event.
But Big Ape City, the clear intention is this is where the arcade games took place.
Yeah, but perhaps part of it took place in some of the factories. I don't know.
Okay, well, maybe they jumped all around. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they jumped all around. Maybe whenever Donkey Kong, when Cranky would grab Pauline and go, that was the sound of him taking a Zeppelin.
I just thought he was gassy. Well, let's talk. Okay, we've talked about Big Ape City conceptually.
Yeah.
Let's real quickly talk about some of the levels.
Well, there was one level that really sticks out in my memory, and I'll find its name in a second. But
the Kong letter one?
What's that?
The Kong letter one?
Yeah, okay, it's level 2. It's called Kong Crazy. Crazy with a K. It took what it established as the save mechanic that we talked earlier, where you have to collect the Kong letters, completely flipped it on its head. And I remember playing the stage for the first time. Like, I still have that memory where you realize after about 10 seconds of playing the level, you've collected all the Kong letters. You don't know what the hell's going on. You have to step on these little, like, weird rotating mechanisms, and they take all the Kong letters that you've collected so far and turn them into platforms that you must use to traverse big gaps on the construction site. Or actually, no, this was up in a blimp. So it's crazy because you're making your own platforms by how well you have collected the Kong letters immediately previously. And there's probably at least 10 full sets of Kong letters on this stage.
Yeah, it's really weird. You know, it's like where did they get this idea?
I don't know, but I love that it exists because it takes that mechanic that people may have been irritated by and does something interesting with it. It's a really great subversion.
I remember when I first played it, I just being amazed how quickly they gave me the Kong letters, and then I realized, what? Yeah, that's what I said. What? I remember the first stage with the balloons, where you had to hop on the balloons. Just weird floating balloons for no reason. They would inflate and deflate.
Oh, that's actually level 3, Balloon Barrage.
Oh, that was level 3?
Yeah. Level 1 was Construction Site Fight.
That's wrong. They switched up the names.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, I know so. Yeah. Because the third level was the Construction Site Fight.
Huh. All right. Well, I'm sorry, but there's no in-game depiction of the names of these levels, so we have to go with the balloon level being called Construction Site Fight and vice versa.
Oh man, you are such a
Yeah, and by the way, in Donkey Kong Land 3, Naka, it's called Crusher.
Okay, Mario Wiki says, trivia. This level is known as Construction Site Fight, although it does not take place in the construction site. The level is also strangely filled with balloons. The level's titles does not make note of that as it normally would. However, another level, Balloon Barrage, takes place in a construction site and does not have balloons. Because of this, the level names are incorrect and should be switched around to match the correct description. Therefore, it was very likely that there was an error in the instruction booklet during the creation of Donkey Kong Land. This error was not addressed in the digital manual for the 3DS Virtual Console version.
See, Nintendo has doubled down on this quote-unquote error.
Oh, Mario Wiki, never change.
Although I am impressed that they caught that. That is actually that's good for you, Mario Wiki. Although I think your hubris has gotten the better of you. You don't get to decide what is and isn't factual.
Oh, this is the one time I'm going to side with Mario Wiki.
What? No, Hyle. In-game events, Word of God, promotional material. I mean, in-game events, promotional material, then Word of God. This is all. You can't, man. You can't. You have to embrace the confusing clusterfuck that is mid-90s video game documentation.
Okay, I could tell both of our balloons are on the deflating side in this construction site fight, so we should probably just move on and start wrapping up this episode by talking about the K. Rool fight.
Well, real quick though, there were some. They brought back the oil drums, which were nice to see. The fiery oil drums.
Well, the construction sites that are referenced incorrectly in Construction Site Fight, they're supposed to be like they're modern reinterpretations. Pretty much the only modern reinterpretations we've gotten of the construction sites from the arcade games. Every time we see them, they're just done in the style of the arcade games. This is the one time we've got like a full graphical overhaul of them.
That's not entirely true. Well, I mean, I guess in Returns and even in the title screen sequence from Donkey Kong Country, we saw like 3D rendered red girders.
Yeah, but they're still done in that style. I'm saying.
Oh, you mean like a reimagining of?
Yeah, this is done as like a full on construction site, like not just girders.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So. Also, it should be pointed out, the blimp levels are weird as fuck. Because nobody can figure out what the backgrounds in the blimp levels are.
Yeah, it's like this grid pattern that just is scrolling diagonally the entire time. I mean, are they trying to suggest that the blimp is slowly crashing? Are you on the Hindenburg?
The best I can gather, it's supposed to be this never-ending skyscraper behind you, like the windows in a skyscraper.
Oh, I never read it that way.
That's the only way I can read
confusing.
It. Yeah, it's because it otherwise it's just gobbledygook. It makes no sense. But
or maybe when you're inside the blimp, like the innards of the blimp actually rotate like a cement mixer.
It's like one of those rotating restaurants.
Yeah. Or like that room they use.
You got really excited for like the dumbest response I could have given.
Yeah, rotating restaurant. Hey, I proposed to Janelle in a rotating restaurant.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm just picturing like you like falling over. Like you get down on one knee and you...
They rotate very slowly, Hyle. There's no like centripetal force.
Where's the fun in that? Why rotate at all then? I want you to propose on the teacups, but like in a restaurant setting.
One thing that's interesting about Big Ape City is that the boss level, much in the same way that Hard Hats was called Mad Mole Holes, K. Rool's boss level is called K. Rool's Kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess everywhere he goes, he sees it as his kingdom.
Yeah. Anywhere his fat touches is his kingdom.
Well, he's not that fat in this game. He's kind of small.
He's fat, but his sprite is teeny tiny.
Yeah, Diddy is taller than K. Rool in this game.
I always thought that K. Rool's sprite in this boss fight, he kind of had kind of a duck face. Like it looks more like a beak than a crocodilian snout.
Oh, K. Rool's just a trendsetter. He was making the duck face selfies way before it was cool. Back before there was even selfies.
Yeah.
He was just doing the duck face.
A man before his time.
But yeah, he's really teeny tiny, and I don't know, that somehow makes him harder when he belly flops. I haven't figured out how.
Yeah, well, I think because he jumps much lower than he does on the Super Nintendo. And also doesn't this entire boss fight take place in one of those weird scrolling blimp backgrounds?
It does.
So it's a little disorienting the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, but he belly flops, and it's different than his jumps in Donkey Kong Country, so it's kind of comical the first time you see it.
Yeah. Also, so this is obviously the last thing you do in the game, but then you get one of the best ending cinemas
Absolutely.
in the entire Donkey Kong universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like some games, they don't give you a sense of accomplishment in the way that, but Donkey Kong Land really knew what gamers were after upon, traversing these 4.5-ish worlds, beating K. Rool. Would you like to tell the people what they've won, Hyle?
I would, Chad. Can I get a little drum roll? Can I get some pan? See, if you actually had the bongos on hand, you could actually do. Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah. That was just as annoying to wait for you to say as it was to get at the end of the game.
And the only reason I didn't get pissed off when I saw that, it's because I knew Donkey Kong Country 2 was coming. So I was like, all right, that's a mulligan.
Seriously, you beat K. Rool and you get the and it says congratulations.
And then the credits roll. And there's no character parade. There's no pictures during the credits. It's just credits on a black screen.
There's not even any text that says, Cranky admits that you've proved him wrong, or nothing.
Even if you get 100%, 101%, there's no acknowledgement of that.
Was there 101% in this game?
No, 100%. It was 100% in this game.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So
yeah, no acknowledgement of that whatsoever. You wasted your time, fucker.
Yeah. Those lightning bolt exclamation marks mattered not.
So it's amazing how much we actually revere this game, despite the total pisser of an ending.
I think that's to the strength of the weird divergences from common sense and how I think it's been unfairly maligned.
Okay. A game with this epic of a beginning in its story, it doesn't need to have an epic ending because there's no way it could match the beginning of the game.
No, yes, there is. They could have given a shit and done something. Yes, that is a complete bullshit justification.
I'm trying to put a happy face on it, Chad. We're building a narrative here, and I need to successfully build a narrative. You have to actually let me build one.
All right.
You can't just piss on it.
All right, go ahead and build your house of cards.
Hey, it's a hit Netflix show. All right, wins Emmys and shit. We haven't won an Emmy in years.
Yeah, it's been a while for us. Kevin Spacey's sneaking up on us.
Yeah, I know, right? He was going to be our Elvis in season 3.
Yeah.
All right. We already referenced the times Donkey Kong Land was referenced or almost referenced through the years. Obviously, Donkey Kong Racing. Donkey Konga 2, strangely enough, seems to take place entirely on the Donkey Kong Land islets. Also, Donkey Kong 64 brought back the banana yellow cartridge that Donkey Kong Land and its sequels pioneered. And it's a shame that we don't have cartridges anymore, because I want some banana yellow something.
Yeah, it's... I guess the best they could do is amiibo stands. Well, I guess Diddy has a banana yellow amiibo stand.
He has a banana yellow Jolly Rancher coming out of his groin. Yeah. I guess they could do game cases. Like we all wanted when Returns came out. We all wanted a banana yellow game case, but alas, Nintendo didn't bite on that one.
Yeah, I've still got a game case for all but 2 of my Game Boy cartridges. Were those official Nintendo products?
What?
Those clear plastic game cases that you would get for Game Boy games?
Yeah, they stopped putting them in boxes, I think around 93 or 94.
Yeah. I wound up with a ton of them despite the fact that I was relatively late to the Game Boy game.
They didn't come with the Donkey Kong Land series, so I just used them from other games and gave them Donkey Kong Land. I was like, "No, you warrant a game case. Fuck you, Ren and Stimpy Space Cadets."
Yeah, the only ones that I relegate my Game Boy Color titles to go without.
You segregate your Game Boy Color title.
Oh no, move on. The reason is, Hyle, because I have confidence that by the time the Game Boy Color came out, that Nintendo was better about cartridge breaking due to dust and stuff getting on the heads. But yeah, I'm a segregationist. Move on.
Of course,
it's 2 in the morning.
There is that Game Boy Color game you let sleep in the master's house.
Jesus. There is okay. This is the problem. Right now, my mind is spinning, trying to end that, and everything I come up with is horrendous.
Yep. This is entrapment. Recorded at 2 a.m. is entrapment.
This is a trap.
Okay. Well, yeah. Donkey Kong Land. It's been forgotten about through the years.
Just play it. Just go play it. Do we need to?
Yeah.
Wrap up the legacy. Really?
I need to do an Aaron Sorkin-esque grand monologue with a soaring, soundtrack in the background as I put my hand in my jacket pocket and look upwards as the flag flies behind me. I need to sell America and the rest of the world on Donkey Kong Land.
I have no choice but to let Russell be Russell.
Okay, thank you. And I Russell for America. I write it on all your napkins. I expect them framed.
They're on their way.
All right. So Donkey Kong Land has been forgotten about over the years. And I first started to feel old like a decade ago when the Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Advance trilogy was really like a thing. That was like the main source of action on DK Vine. And people were talking about it and commented that they never actually played Donkey Kong Land or the sequels. And I was like, how could you be on a Donkey Kong website and not have played Donkey Kong Land? Because to me, they were inseparable from their country big brothers. The Donkey Kong Lands were the epilogues to the country games, each individual one.
But they were only ever released on the Game Boy, whereas subsequent generations have had opportunities on, by way of Game Boy Color in Donkey Kong Country's case, Game Boy Advance for the whole trilogy, and then on the Wii.
And also, a lot changed between 1995 and just 10 years after that. The Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance really made the original Game Boy kind of seem very quaint. And eventually it just got weeded out of gamers' DNAs that you kind of accepted these monochrome versions, these scaled down versions of console games. I mean, we're at the point now where portable games are of an N64 caliber or higher,
Oh, higher, definitely.
Yeah.
Like you look at Xenoblade on the 3D. I mean, that's a Wii game.
Yeah.
It's lower resolution, of course.
Right.
That's a Wii game.
But you look at Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, slightly downscaled, but it's still the complete game, and in many ways the superior version. That would have been unthinkable in 1995. But
right.
we grew up with this, and we kind of just accepted it, and overlooked. They weren't even faults at the time. You couldn't call them faults because it was what it was. It was a Game Boy game. And for a Game Boy game, Donkey Kong Land was remarkable. And I started to feel old when that stopped being common knowledge, when that wasn't just the wisdom of the day and it was kind of an archaic fact lost to the sands of time. And so because of that, and because of the buyout and everything that happened around then, Donkey Kong Land was forgotten about. Like we were the only ones who talked about it online. I mean, Hogwash the Flying Pig, what was that?
Yeah. Well, there was the page on Rareware.
Yeah, I'm saying post buyout.
Oh, yeah.
It ceased to be. And it was only until it was brought back on the Virtual Console, we first learned about this near the end of last year, and it finally happened, back in the spring or late winter, whenever that was. But you can now finally play it again, and I think everybody out there should download it. It's $4.99, so come on. If you have a 3DS, this is a no-brainer. And
I want to hear what this is a homework assignment to any listeners.
I told you there's going to be homework. I told you.
Play it and then let us know what you think. Like, go on the DK Vine forums, or let us know on Facebook or Twitter, or even in the YouTube comments of this episode.
Or call the DK Vine hotline at 1281410 Kong.
Perfect. All sorts of ways, but I am genuinely interested in someone who is playing it for the first time after listening to us go on for 2 hours and 45 minutes. What do you think about this weird little slice of the mid-90s? I mean, I think it holds up quite well, but it's always hard for us to tell what's nostalgia.
I mean, yes, there's little things like you fall off a screen and you can die. Like the screen will sometimes not catch up to you if you fall, which never happens.
Jumping's a little floatier than it doesn't control quite as tightly, but because it is a new engine.
Admittedly, there are faults that the later Donkey Kong Land sequels weeded out, but. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it just because we grew up in this era where this kind of game was acceptable? Or or is it really just like, is it not a good game? Like, for us, it's a great game, but did we have to be culturally conditioned for it? And so, like, I really want to know what you younger fans out there have to say. Like, the teenagers now, would you still put it in your back pocket and grind up on each other all shirtless and oily? I want to know.
Yeah,
and I want video footage too.
He does not want video footage. Do not submit video footage. It will be turned over to the authorities. We didn't look at it. We didn't open the file.
Yep.
Is that how you want to end it?
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.